6:30. I'd like to call the September 21st meeting of the Marshfield Concom to order. Make a motion to open. If I get a second?
Second.
Okay,
All in
Joe.
favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, 6-0.
Yes.
Oh, it's 5-0, pardon, there's two missing today.
Okay, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, dated June 16th, 2021, COVID regulations, this will be a hybrid meeting, both remote and in person. If there's a technology failure, the meeting will continue because we have a full quorum present. That's it.
Great. Mr. Chairman, I just remind you that you've got meeting minutes for 8/17. I received no comments, sir.
Okay, a motion to accept the meetings, minutes of, what was it?
August 17th as written.
August 17th as written. Have we got a second?
Second.
Susan, Karen,
And Susan, all in favor?
Aye.
thank you. That helps us out a lot. All right. What's your word, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, business item 1 is de minimis activities. You want to handle those, Mike?
Yeah, I'll handle these.
Just brief explanation and
Yep.
we'll vote.
So for 2 Damon's Point Road, excuse me, that is within AE flood zone and just outside of buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. The location of the generator itself is just outside the buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. The representative, I spoke to him on the phone this morning, and they'd like to go with a similar design as to, just one second, as to what's on the bottom of the screen there. It would be a wooden structure. They only have to elevate it 6 inches or so. So it would be a wooden structure filled with crushed stone with a concrete slab on top. So the concrete slab would not be a footing. It would be, the generator would be resting on that. And they have communicated with Andrew Stewart as well, and he gives his blessing to this.
Yeah, it's a unique one, and I asked Mike the same thing, and he said, yeah, that's what they want, so it's a new one.
Okay, make a motion to accept as de minimis activity the generator stand at 2 Damon's Point Road. If I get a second?
Second.
Joe?
Second, Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous. And, 969 Ocean Street, Mike?
Yes, 969 Ocean Street. This is for a approximately 5 foot by 7 foot platform with 4 footings and the associated trenching and fencing along with it. It's an additional structure for the radio tower over there at 969 Ocean Street, and they need to put in some more equipment, and this stand would facilitate that.
Okay, motion to accept the de minimis activity at 969 Ocean Street. Do I get a second?
Second.
Susan?
Second, Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
All right, and then we're gonna shift gears here.
And item B2,
Yes.
Salt Marsh, UAS project extension, UMass.
Bear with me. Yep, Dr. Scott Jackson is here with, I believe, his students. And you need to share, correct, Dr. Jackson? Let me make you a co-host. And thank you for coming back after your last visit in 2019. We are appreciative of the study work you're doing. You should be receiving that now, sir. And we promised him to get him done quickly. He has a Conservation Commission meeting starting at 7 o'clock, so in all of 26 minutes. So it's yours, sir.
Yes, well, thank you for inviting me into your meeting, and it's a pleasure to be with you. Just to give you a brief overview of the project that we're working on the South River Marsh. Ryan Wicks and Josh Ward were planning to be here tonight, but they were out in the field all day today and are now in transit back, so they're not able to join me, but they are the ones that are doing most of the data collection out there, including the flying of the drones and collecting information on the marsh surface. So let me just run through quick what we're trying to do and what it entails, and perhaps have time for a few questions before I have to run to my own Conservation Commission meeting. So salt marshes are having a difficult time of it here along the New England coast and elsewhere around the world because of a number of threats that are listed here on the screen, but Of primary concern right now is sea level rise and whether salt marshes are able to keep up with the rapid pace of sea level elevation. And there's a real urgent need to be able to evaluate salt marshes and determine what kind of condition they're in and try to assess their vulnerability to sea level rise. But this is not a particularly easy thing to do. For one thing, access can be difficult in salt marshes. Some of them are soupy and some of them are firm. You don't always know which is which until you fall through. There's a lot of ditches that crisscross the marsh, and there's always the changing water levels that give you a window of time to be out there, and then you've got to get out before the high tide. It's difficult to collect data at all stages in the tide cycle. So whereas when you're out there at low tide, you can get around pretty well, you can see a lot. It's hard to get out and about on the marsh at high tide. Sometimes there's aerial photographs or satellite data that you could use to try to get a sense of what's going on for salt marshes, but you have no control over when these photographs were taken and what stage in the tide cycle. So if you're looking for characteristics at high tide or at spring tide, it's very difficult to find photos or satellite data that line up with those time periods. There are some metrics that have been developed that show fairly good correlation with salt marshes that are in trouble, that seem to be losing ground with regards to sea level rise. One of them is called the UVVR, or the unvegetated to vegetated ratio within a marsh. The problem is that when this starts to show numbers that are disturbing, it's often late in the process and there's limited opportunity to go in and intervene to try to prevent the salt marsh from deteriorating further. So we're interested to see and explore the opportunities to use unoccupied aerial systems, otherwise known as drones and sensors, to collect data remotely by flying over these marshes and use it to look for subtle changes in vegetation that might signal that a salt marsh is getting wetter over time. Look at the water content of marsh peat so that as it begins to swell, that's one of the things that can happen as sea level rises. The marshes actually end up with more airspace and more water and less peat. And so they have less structural integrity, but you don't always see that until you can detect that the density of the peat has gotten significantly less. So we're interested to see if using some of the sensors that we have will help us evaluate the water content or the density of marsh peat. And also looking for evidence of plant stress, so that if plants are beginning to succumb to the higher water elevations, can we detect that in time to intercede? So our basic approach is to collect data on the ground, specifically about detailed mapping of wetland salt marsh vegetation, looking at water features and bare ground and classifying them by a classification system that we developed specifically for this project. We use that on-the-ground data to train models that utilize imagery that we collect with drones and sensors. So we take and fly these drones, we collect image data, and then we use the ground-based data to help us develop models that can classify the vegetation, the bare ground, and the water features of the marsh, and evaluate their vulnerability to sea level rise. And our hope, although we don't know whether this is possible, but our hope is that we can then use these models derived from unoccupied aerial systems to train models that can use satellite data that would then allow us to do broad-scale assessments across the entire coast of Massachusetts or the whole coast of New England and get a rough idea of which marshes are doing well and which ones are in trouble. The specific objectives of our study are to create an automated classification model so that when we fly these drones and we collect the imagery, we can then put them through computer models and map vegetation, water features, and bare ground on these salt marshes. We also want to assess salt marsh condition, identify areas of active degradation, look for areas of stress, and characterize tidal hydrology so that we can actually see how often these salt marsh platforms are being flooded. Is it just during the spring tides, or is it beginning to flood during relatively normal high tides? And we hope to develop protocols and tools that can be used by other researchers and also conservation practitioners to do condition assessments of salt marshes, assist in planning and implementation of conservation actions, and to monitor the response of conservation actions to see whether it's having the desired effect. So the tools that we use for this work are a variety of different drone vehicles. The big one that we have is the Matrice 600, and then we have a smaller Matrice 210, and we have a couple of other drones, a Mavic and a Phantom, that we can use in different conditions. The big drone is helpful for us because it can carry 2 sensors at a time, and it can carry some of the bigger sensors that we have. On the right are some of the sensors, or otherwise known as cameras. The top one is a MicaSense that registers visible light in blue, green, and red spectrum, a red edge spectrum, and a near infrared radiation. What's at the bottom is a SWIR, or a shortwave infrared sensor. It's a relatively new device, and it's been up till now used mostly for military purposes, but we have found that it's useful for detecting water content, and therefore we shows great promise for evaluating wetland systems. So essentially, we're looking at different spectral bands of light, some within the visible wavelength, but several bands that are outside of visible light, and then stacking those images together so that we can have a data source that we can use to develop models. So that some of those other bands are useful for looking at vegetation and vegetation stress, or water and water content. So these are just some of the images that we've taken from the South River Marsh, showing the different spectral bands that we've collected. One is called red edge, so it's right on the edge of red, just beyond what you can see. Near infrared, shortwave infrared, and then an index that can be calculated based on these different spectral bands. Those images, these different spectral bands we stack together into image stacks, and then we run them through a supercomputer using high-capacity computer processing centers, and that's how we make sense of all of the information that's collected by those drones and sensors. We fly at 400 feet, and each transect that we fly has 70% overlap, which allows us to then look at elevation and develop digital elevation models. And in each site that we study, we now have 9 principal sites on the coast of Massachusetts. We pick a 100-acre footprint to do our data collection. That gives us enough time to fly and thoroughly photograph the site before the tide changes significantly to a different stage in the tide cycle. In order to stack all these images so that they line up perfectly, we deploy ground control points in the marsh. This is one of the only visible impacts on the marsh that we have, is these like 1-foot square PVC squares with a black dot. We put it on a piece of PVC so it sticks up above the marsh platform, and then we look for these when we look at the images, and we fix their positions so that all the images line up exactly together. We fly at different times throughout the growing season, and in some cases in the late spring and in the early fall. And on each day that we go out, we try to get 3 flights in, one at low tide, one at mid tide, and one at high tide. When we get to the spring and the fall, we often only get 2 flights in, but we try to be very strategic about which flights we get, and we try to get the neap tides as well as the spring tides. We were very active in the South River Marsh for a year or 2, and then we suspended work in there while we dealt with some of the challenges that we found. One thing we were concerned about is that the footprint that we were using came close enough to enough houses that people were starting to complain about the drones flying around. So we reconfigured the footprint so that we can stay farther away from the houses that border the marsh. And we also had to deal with connectivity issues so that we could connect our equipment together And we've pretty much overcome those things and are ready to go back to doing more flights. But here's a tally of the flights that we have already and the data that we've already collected from that South River Marsh. The findings that we have, the preliminary findings from the work that we've done so far indicates that we get really interesting maps that have very high resolution and that the accuracy of those maps are about 90%. That's good, but we want to make it better, and so we're about to go through another round of model development now that we have more data to try to improve that accuracy. And what we found is that it's a good time to do ground truthing is to go out in the winter when the marsh is frozen, because we can get out to sites that are just too soupy to visit during the growing season. And just to illustrate the kind of resolution that we have, this is an image from Essex Bay showing what this site looks like to Google Earth in a Google Earth map. And then this is what it looks like in terms of what our drone imagery each pixel in the image is 8 centimeters. So basically, we're talking about maybe 3 or 4 inches square. And here's another one from the Red River Marsh at Chatham and Harwich, and you can really see the granular nature of the canals and the ditches and islands. So here's some of the image that we've developed for the South River Marsh. The one on the left is a digital elevation model that we can get a sense of the contours of the marsh and also the height of the vegetation. And on the right is a digital orthomosaic photo where we basically have a high resolution, visible light image of that site. This shows the placement of our ground control points as we initially put them in 2019. And as I mentioned, we've reconfigured the site somewhat and we've moved the ground control points so that for the most part, it's off of private land and so it's on conservation land or town-owned land instead. And these are the kinds of other maps that we are going to be generating as we get through more of the data analysis and the modeling work. They're basically color maps that show us the various different vegetation types that are on the marsh. And then we're going to collect data on tidal hydrology to overlay on this so that we get a sense of what vegetation serves as the best signal for a marsh that may not be keeping up with sea level rise. And that's my last slide. And if there's any time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I got a question.
Yep.
So, Dr. Jackson, hi, thank you for your presentation. Some of the data, will that data be available for other federal agencies such as FEMA for flood maps or anything like that, or is this data strictly for, for your endeavor here?
No, we share the data with anybody who wants it. We're working closely with Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management. The work that we're doing is funded by US EPA. So we view all the data as being in the public domain, and we're required by EPA to make our data available. And so when the project is finished, all the data will be put up on a public data sharing website. And anybody who wants data prior to that can contact us, and we're happy to oblige.
Okay.
I got a quick question too. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
We have a group called the Green Harbor River TAC, or Technical Advisory Committee, and they're looking at controls and of the dike, et cetera, for various impacts. One of the impacts is upstream of the dike. We're seeing a lot of phragmites encroach, et cetera. Could you adapt this to track the phragmites a little bit better? Is that something that could be done? Because if so, maybe in the next meeting, we meet every 60 days, I might bring it up.
Yeah, Phragmites is one of the easiest things to see on the images because it's tall and it's fluffy looking. It has a texture that's quite different than everything else. So visually we can see it. Ironically, sometimes the computer models confuse it with the tall form of Spartina alterniflora. So as we get more information about tidal hydrology, that'll be pretty easy to distinguish those two vegetation types. But certainly I think that, flying periodically over a period of time, we should be able to track the changes in the coverage of Phragmites.
Thank you.
Anything else from the commission?
I just, Dr. Jackson, you said that there were some concerns expressed by the neighbors with the original layout, and you've changed the layout. How do you know there won't be any more concerns?
We can't promise there will be no more concerns, but, basically when our field people are out in the field, people will come up and talk to them, and that's how we got a sense that some people were not very happy. So we got an idea of where those people live, and we saw that we could easily reconfigure the footprint to avoid the people who were most vocal to us about complaints. There are other people there who, when we talk to them, they're generally satisfied, but we're careful to check with them on a regular basis to make sure they're still okay and they know that we're going out there. So we're trying to be very sensitive to the neighbors and talk to people, trying to explain that we're not spying, that we're only pointing our cameras at the vegetation. And I think we're at a point now where we're less concerned that we're going to be irritating people unnecessarily.
You may want to communicate to them, you're not looking at structure, because they'll think you're feeding it to us for that purpose, and we're not interested in that here. We'll get a drone if we need it through the proper channels for that. We're happy with working on our part of it, one by one, site by site.
When do you anticipate having any conclusions? Give us a report card on the condition of our marshes.
I think that maybe another 2 years before we start to put together a final report for this work. Right now, what we've been doing is intermediate reports, progress reports, and we've had a period of time where we needed to find a new supercomputer to work with because the one that we had been working on, there had been administrative changes, and so we just located another computer that we're working on at MIT. And that's going to then really increase the rate at which we process the data, and then we'll see just how good a job we're doing, how much additional work we need to do to get the results to be credible. But in the meantime, once we get a good quality map or of vegetation for the South River area, we'd be happy to share that with you or anybody else in town that would be interested in having that information. And then we'll make sure you get the final products of our work as well.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission? Any brief questions from the audience?
What is the limit of work? I mean, what is the limit of study in terms of how far back you're going?
Well, we don't go outside the marsh at all. So we're all within the marsh. So our footprint does not cover the buildings along the edge. I mean, there is a certain amount that might be recorded on the edge, but that's not what we're intentionally trying to record.
Upstream of the dike and then downstream of the dike?
No, South River Rod.
Oh, south River.
And it's like Duxbury, but he could adjust.
Round Coast
Sorry about
Guard
that.
Station.
Yeah, but he could adjust, that's why I put it in. He could adjust.
Okay, Dr. Jackson, I know your time is limited. Thank you for your
Mr.
presentation.
Chairman, one more, this guy, I believe Jeremy Eck.
Sir?
Sir, will the 1x1 PVC sensor or reference points be removed at some point in time?
Oh, yes. We go out every season and make sure they're still there, and we clean them up, and we refurbish them, but we are committed to remove them all when we're done.
And your name for the record is?
Jeremiah,
Address, please?
227 Bay Ave.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks, Dr. Jackson.
All right, thank you much. I gotta run.
Good luck with your meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for making time for Dr. Jackson. Okay, we gotta get moving
Okay,
here.
next item is B3.
Correct, let me get caught up here.
Alton Road,
Yeah.
DPW.
Let me get in there here, where is it, slides?
We are in the process, I'm sorry, Rod Perkins, Town Engineer, we're in the process of doing a repair on Allerton Road. They've had a flooding situation there for a number of years. We've got a collapsed drain, and we're going to replace about 400 feet of drain pipe that's in Allerton Road. We're requesting the exemption for working on utilities within a roadway. Should take us about 3 weeks or so to complete the work.
Right, we got it right up here. This area gets significantly flooded. Recently, right along here in Ireland, there was a property at 80. It has a vernal pool back in here. There's an undeveloped lot right over here. And this was a lake. You could have sailed a small, kid's boat through it or something. And everybody was complaining to us, so God bless the DPW for getting in there and addressing it. But that's the work area, and it gets to be a real pond in there.
All work is within the layout of the road?
Within the layout of the road, correct.
Where does that drain to?
That drains down to Peabody, just beyond Peabody. There's existing 24-inch drain from approximately Peggy Lane down to Peabody Road, and out falls, heads towards Ferry Hill Lane, I think it is. Yeah, so the drain is collapsed from just south of Peggy Lane to so not quite all the way to Ireland, but
Right about here, Rod?
I used to live right in that neighborhood. Any questions, comments from other commissioners? I hear none. I'd like to make a motion that we allow the repairs to Allerton Road under the Wetlands Protection Exemption.
Second.
Second, Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Go forth and prosper.
Thank you.
thank you.
Next item is B4, 743 Ocean Street. Mike, you want to take that?
Yep, I can handle that. So, at 743 Ocean Street, I confirmed with the homeowner today that they are going to implement diamond pier footings, which qualified them for a de minimis activity via the policy approved on the June 1st, 2022 meeting. So
Yeah.
no action is needed there.
So
So
no
what
concrete.
happens, go ahead.
No concrete foundation then, or?
No concrete foundation.
so-
They're implementing diamond pier
right.
footings.
Just so the public knows, and so anybody who's out there is watching this, people come in, they get a building permit, and they may start down one avenue, and then they realize that there's a bunch of permitting they've got to do, and it shapes their thinking. One of the things that's commonly used now is diamond piers and the stand that conservation has approved and that the building department has approved. So that streamlines the whole process, and they're starting to realize there's a policy-driven component, and there's other ones that have to go through the commission that create, approval process like this. You need ratification of it. Otherwise, we can't have the de minimis activity and it goes away. So that's how these things are showing up, and we're trying to adjust as they learn and as they provide feedback and information. So if we start out with a concrete block and it becomes diamond piers, it's because they chose to do that and they want to do less permitting and they want a more robust finished product.
Okay, Bill, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to accept the generator stand at 743 Ocean Street as a de minimis activity. I get a second? Second. Joe. Second, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, Bill?
Yes, 500.
Business item 5, 1083 Ocean Street. Mike?
Yeah. Mr. Danko, would you like to speak to that one?
We purchased our house in 2016.
Your name and address, please.
Andrew Danko, homeowner of 1083 Ocean Street.
Thank you.
So we purchased our house in 2016 through the VA. We were informed at the time that the 10 by 20 garage was not in good shape, but we did, because of the, it was really difficult to buy houses at that point, we decided to waive that and just accept that burden on our account to enable the purchase of the house. As we've grown into the house over the last 6 years, we've learned that there's been lots of Band-Aids with that house. That's been a fun financial endeavor. So the garage, which is the right triangle there, the 10 by 20 garage, I believe was not built. It is taxed on the assessor's site since 2003, but we couldn't find any permits related to it, and I don't believe it was actually built with weatherproofing material. So it's debilitated. It's dilapidated fairly well. The inside is collapsing now. While it does have a new roof on it, it is going to collapse, and one of these tornadoes or hurricanes will probably drop it the next year or two. So we moved out as of November, so it's just an empty building on our lot now, and our stuff is currently in storage down the street. As well, the deck that you see there, just north of, it's also not weatherproofing and is falling apart as I walk on it. So we put in a building permit and floodplain permit to drop the garage. It's on a concrete slab, 10 by 20 concrete slab. Reuse that slab. While that was a garage, we're just looking to put a shed so we can have external storage on site. And then the deck we're going to replace with pavers, because as you can see, this is a very tiny lot. For privacy's sake, we'd rather be more ground level than that, than having the 3-step porch that is seen there. So our plan was to raise up the, drop the garage once properly permitted, replace that with a shed, drop the deck, replace that with pavers, and stairs using the diamond pier footings for the handrails.
And if I may add
Your
to
comments,
Bert,
Mike?
yes, their entire properties in land subject to coastal storm flowage, but the buffer zone only extends to that top left corner about where the stairs are on the current existing deck and the associated fencing. And you want to take care of that fencing too, right?
So yeah,
In the future?
the fencing, which is about 20 years old, it's wood fencing on the sides, and then it's just a 5-foot chicken wire in the back. Every storm knocks it down, so we just
50 to 100, tell them it's 50 to 100 ballpark.
So we don't really have a
Yeah.
vision to change the fence.
It's ballpark 50 to 100, the fence, and then the 100 ends about across
Based-
that deck.
Yeah, I
Based
took a
on-
look, there's fully developed lots in between there and
Yeah.
the conservation land.
Yeah, there's an
Agreed.
isolated, vegetated, and adjacent lot.
Correct. We just want to call that out so that other people get bigger projects. This is small ancillary items, and I agree with everybody's conversation that this could all be handled under de minimis.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept the activities at 1083 Ocean Street as de minimis activities.
Question first, Bert.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're going to put paving stones down where the deck is,
Yes, we're not changing the footprint of the deck.
and what are you going to have underneath the paving stones? Is that going to be semi-porous or so that it drains?
There's some good products.
Whatever you guys want.
You want
we
to
have-
talk to them about that? Because otherwise you'll get water ponding on it and it won't drain.
Okay,
I can send you some good information about pervious materials.
okay, great.
Yeah.
It'll give you the stability you're looking for, but it'll let the water percolate away, less hardscape, less flooding, less ice, etc. It'll be better for you down the road.
Great.
With that, I will second, Bert.
Okay, second, Joe, all in favor?
All right?
Aye.
It's unanimous, Bill?
Okay, got it. Have a nice day, thank you.
Thank you.
And moving on to item B6, 249 Bay Ave.
Correct, let me move down to that one.
Who's
Okay,
handling that
I
one?
got this one, and I know that Jeremiah's here, so also let me get that. Let me see if I can definitely, oh boy, does not like me today. There's got to be a different way. Oh, okay. Bear with me, you're a little clumsy. How can I just get this to slide down a little bit? Here we go. Okay, Jeremiah, recognize that? All right, where do you want me to go? And who's talking about this, please? You or Mr. Gray? Okay, so you're Jeremiah Eck from 227.
227 Bay Ave, representing Ralph Gray at 249 Bay
Okay,
Ave.
gotcha. All right,
Brief background, about 10 years ago, when the original house at 249 was permitted, there were 2 order of conditions issued, one for the house and one for the property next door, which is actually public land, partially owned by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The order of conditions has been fully fulfilled for the house, but because partially, part of the land next door to the house was Commonwealth, it was never clear, we couldn't find actually who owned the property, or who at the state was willing to allow us to do the work. We couldn't register the order conditions, et cetera, et cetera. About a year ago, because this has dragged on for quite some time, this, by the way, drawing was originally part of the original order condition, but now has been slightly modified, and that's why we're here tonight. About a year ago, the owner hired an attorney to kind of figure this out so he could get the order conditions fulfilled. Obviously, the land that he's doing the work on is owned by the town and by the Commonwealth. There's a little sliver of land owned by the Commonwealth all the way to the lower left corner, in which we're going to put a little stair.
Right here.
Yes.
See
So
where I
anyway,
circled?
we have now found someone at the state who's willing to take control of it, willing to issue a license to our contractor to do the work. We've been in discussions with Marshfield, DPW, et cetera. Everybody, I think, is on board. We've met on the site with Bill. We've discussed the original drawing and the new drawing, and the only difference between the original and the new is we're moving some of the plant material around, pushing it a little to the west, because one of the neighbors who sits on their porch and has been there for many, many years doesn't want any high vegetation blocking their view. We're not changing the amount of vegetation, we're just sliding it on the site a little bit. We're also changing, at Bill's suggestion, to American beach grass, is that right? From the Concom mix. As part of this project, it will be a renovation of the revetment, which are all those stones that have moved up all around because of storms. The planting, there will be an historical marker, also a brief description of the Cut River and how it came about. I've been working with Cindy on historical wording along with Bill. There will be a new bench as well, and a little bicycle rack. And those are all part of the original agreement, so we're not really changing any of that. So we're here tonight really to just get your blessing on the slight modification to the plan that Bill has already looked at.
So, Mr. Chairman, basically, this got approved in roughly 2010. It had all kinds of tooling associated with it back in the developed Patrick era, et cetera. And to Jeremiah's point, this one was a real difficult project, and they figured out the pathway. The secondary owner is down in here is DPW. I understand they've been talking directly to DPW. There are small stones up in here. There are equivalent cobbies, and also, I would say, construction grade, gravel. So there's a mixture of things. And what they've done is they've concentrated the plants over here near Gray's property, which is actually probably beneficial to him, but also helps out with the viewscape and stability. This would probably be an area that get pretty heavily hit with waves, so having that there would be good. This plan was updated originally by LEC, a qualified wetland scientist who the commission knows well and has a lot of faith in. And then what you have here is you have their plants, and they've gone to the American beach grass. This has jumped from conservation mix, this one where the star is, to American beach grass, to bayberry plants, to American beach grass. And one of them, one of the plans actually called out 600 plugs. They're calling out 1,000 square feet. I just encourage the commission to get both those handled, or the greater of the two. So if 600 plugs required, 1,500 square feet, so be it, then do that, because that's what was on one of the prior plans. So that would be the only comment I'd have on this. I don't think you can approve the sign yet, sort of need to do that so we can get this closed, but we'd like to get the commission might like to get a sign off from the historical commission so that everybody's on the same page. And everything else is pretty benign. It seems like it's going to be a nice sitting place. They've really made the area a bit nicer. It'll be more pleasant to sit there. You'll have trees on one side, you'll have an open view on the other, and the neighbors are happy, and you get vegetation that will thrive in this environment.
And I should probably point out the obvious, that the homeowner is spending his money for the public good, and he's quite willing to do that. And I have cleared the historical wording with Cindy.
Oh, you did?
Just this week.
Get a letter from them, because they have meetings, that would be the thing.
I'd like to open it up to comments from the commissioners.
I like Bill's suggestion about the beach grass.
And I forgot to mention that there's a planting plan schedule.
Yes.
Okay, and it's pretty easy to follow, and there's 2 years of monitoring, because the stuff will die. Like this year was tough on a lot of plants. Okay. Qualified wetland scientists would be involved in that too for the monitoring.
Okay, so I guess the motion would be to accept the modified planting plan
Yes.
with the changes you requested, which are,
Which are 600 plugs 1,000 square feet or 600 plugs, whichever is greater. And then, as per the commission's typical requirements for planning success and monitoring. So, and plans been accepted.
You accept that, sir?
Yes.
So I make the motion. Do I get a second?
Second.
Joe?
Second is Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, Bill.
Okay,
Thank
that-
you.
Thank you.
Great, moving in the right direction, Jeremiah. Okay, the next one, Mr. Chairman, is tabled. There was a notice of violation that was subsequent to the meeting on the 7th on 10 South Street. Mr. Cutter, I contacted him. He wasn't returning till today, and he needed additional time. He says he's talking to the building commissioner, and he'd like to be moved out to the 5th of October, or perhaps more, but that he needs time to complete his conversation with the building commissioner and his notice of violation.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to table B7, 10 South Street. Do I get a second?
Second.
That's Ken Dodge.
Second is Ken. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
So can you read these? All right.
Moving on to public hearings. First, I'd like to announce the continued hearings.
Got 6 word, I bet all of them.
Yeah, I've got 274 Foster Avenue. I'd like to make a motion to continue to October 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next one is 1203 Ferry Street. Request to continue to October 19th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. 1180, next continuation is 1184 Ferry Street, to be continued to October 19th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is John. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Next continuation is 12 Gilbert Street. Motion to continue to October 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Ken. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. And next continuation, 76 Carolyn Circle. Request to continue to October 19th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And the final continuation is 17 Oregon Road, to be continued to October 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Ken. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And now to open our hearings. First hearing is 200 Joseph Driver Way. In compliance with the regulations, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, September 21st, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by the Town of Marshfield, 1639 Ocean Street, to determine whether the area depicted in the plan or map referenced below is subject to jurisdiction of Wetlands Protection Act. And the hearing officer is,
Joe?
okay,
The folder went to him? Yeah.
Volunteered because Craig is away.
yeah, I just noticed that.
So this is a project for vegetative management, and I believe we want to confirm that they are not responsible for taxes.
That is correct. There's no taxes here or fees, so we have to make sure to get that waived, all right?
Yep.
Mike, can you help me out with that? Follow up with
Yep.
Liz and get that handled? Okay, waiver. I think the harbor master is here too, Mr. Chair, Mr. Hearing Officer.
There he is. I knew I saw him earlier, but I didn't see him. So this is land that is subject to coastal flooding, riverfront, and a bordering zone to a vegetative wetland. Mike, if you would like to.
Yes, please, thank you. So this is a request for RDA for areas that were previously permitted under RDA that had expired back in, I think, 2020. And I think we added on this one, the Harbor Walk portion of Joseph Dubeck Way. It's a look, just a weed whacked
back to Sumac and Poison Ivy off of the Harbor Walk. And then the area in the park, which is the fragmites on the west side of the park, that was mowed before under that same permit. And then there's two little pieces, one was covered under the minimus last week, but there's one little piece by the southern crosswalk. There's a wedge of like 10 feet to 14 feet. For safety, we're looking to open that up, so if people are in the crosswalk, they can be seen by the traffic that's heading north off the town here.
Mike, I got it up here just to,
Yeah.
so this is what he's talking about down here. That's the crosswalk. It's a pretty dangerous thing for the crossing and so on.
Like I said, the rest was previously moved before, so looking to first get back the permits that I had prior to the park. The park's had a lot of volunteers go there the last couple of weeks, and the Fairway Hills Association has done a phenomenal job there with plantings and things like that. It looks pretty good, so I'm looking just to enhance the real estate down there in the town.
He's got a fair amount of opportunistic and other plants. What the species are?
Yeah, there's staghorn sumac and Phragmites are really prevalent in this area. When you go down to Harbor Park, that's pretty much all you see.
And it goes on up here. We've only shown you the most, concentrated areas, but it goes on right up to, up towards beyond the wastewater treatment plant. So this is basically along the rail within the riprap. So he's trying to clean that up to make it look presentable.
Just 3 feet, just like off the.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing.
Burning field cuttings, looking to keep the poison ivy, so people can walk on it.
Yeah, I wound up walking on the street last week because I'm really allergic to poison ivy. Thank you.
And the roots stay in the ground. They help keep everything there. So they're tough, tenacious plants, and they'll keep growing back.
Anything further, Mike? Commissioner, discussion,
What
questions?
about the tree? Does that include that too?
Yeah, it's right here, ma'am.
Yeah,
Right?
but that was covered in the minimus last week, that was right.
It was. This is this will cover for the length of the RDA permit as well, in case that tree does grow back. Which it's a staghorn sumac, and they grow quite rapidly.
They'll colonize pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And they're blocking the view. It's a safety thing. So
I think I saw no commissioner discussion. Any additional public?
what's your name for the record, sir?
Eric Murphy, Ocean Street,
What address in Ocean?
252.
Thank you.
I'm in the industry of wildlife management, and I'm concerned about the offspring of rodents and coyotes and such spilling over into the neighborhoods. We've gotten several calls from the neighborhoods. The Board of Health is aware of it, of rat infestations, coyotes running down the streets, simply because we're cutting this area down. I'm just wondering if there's any plan for rodent abatement, animal abatement. Is the environmental police officers, are they aware of what's going on down there? Are they gonna come down and do any trapping of the coyotes? Just questioning what is the plan as far as we just gonna chop this stuff down and let the neighbors deal with the animals?
So I can answer a little bit of that. This is beyond you, Mike. So it's just going to be the grooming within this area, which was done before the DSA was cut recently. This was a 2017 RDA that's been nearly duplicated 100%, with this addition here and this addition here and some areas over there. It's basically just vista pruning, if you might want to think about it. This is a safety issue. This is a, safety visibility issue. It's not the DSA itself, it's these small areas, and we got no complaints about anything back then in 2017 when he was fully permitted back then. I've heard stories about the DSA, but I feel like that's a separate item to the purpose of this one. This is meant for, like, if you take your family down, will have a vista of the water. In this case over here, this gives some line of sight. If there's an issue, they gotta be able to record it. Here, some person crossing the road is not gonna get run over. So those are the purposes for this, and that's what he's trying to do and achieve with this particular approach. It is not the DSA, it's separate.
So you didn't answer my question about wildlife management. It wasn't about the DSA, along
Understood,
bushes.
understood. Just so we,
Question of whether or not they were gonna do any
okay.
road and abatement or wildlife management to help the neighbors in the neighborhood who are physically paying money to do this stuff because the animals have been pushed out of there.
So my answer to you was indirect, and I'll be more direct this time. The 2017 permit, which is almost a duplicate of this, except for this area here, and except for this area here, and a little extension up here, we did not receive any complaints about rodents or coyotes or anything like that. This is a new complaint on a relatively similar permit that was provided before. I would say that the animal control could be contacted. We had a problem down at the John Little property. Everybody's getting stung, and we brought them in, and they extinguished the yellow jackets that were in there. Mike and I went down and picked up phones and helped the people out and so on and so forth. I would suggest that's the way to go. Coyotes roam. I think that may have more to do with, this area here that's being cut than this area here. I don't think they're making good use of it. However, I will say that opposite the DAV, when we were cleaning that area up, I did see bed down areas for deer, not coyote, but deer. I think coyote use, dens and so on. So I haven't seen anything. I don't think they would be using this area. I don't think this project here would necessarily trigger hordes of animals going, roaming. And it's consistent with the prior project. But one avenue is to get the animal control involved and to better monitor it.
Thank you. If you may,
Hi.
introduce yourself.
Hi,
Lead
Diane
up to
Jordan,
yours.
15 Bancroft Street.
Can I get the last name? I apologize. Jordan?
Jordan,
Pardon.
no worries. So, yeah, I just want to, I know this is about a separate little cutting, but I wasn't able to come. I was away the meeting that you reimbursed the harbor master for the DSA cutting. So I just want to say that I live right behind there. And that day, when they cut all of that, I recorded the coyotes who are now living about 20 feet from my house in the middle of the day. A few recordings of them from that day. They definitely were up in the DSA and are not now in the DSA. Now they're in the woods and marshy area about 20 feet from my house. So
That's evidence.
just to go on the record with that, I actually don't think that animal control could do anything about it because typically when you call them, they're not available. I have called them before about hurt animals and they, I'm sure I know that animal control is awesome and everything, but I think they're pretty limited. So for them to expect them to come in and take care of a pack of coyotes that's 20 feet from my house is a little unrealistic.
So we don't have training either, and that's not our necessary specialty. That's why I mentioned animal control. The other state level entity is Mass Wildlife. They do banning of birds and so on. They move wildlife that's injured. They do a variety of things. They have prescribed burns in different parts of the state. That's one of the things that they do.
They don't trap and relocate wild animals.
You know that?
Massachusetts law.
I'm
Yeah.
a professional
Okay.
problem animal control for the state of Massachusetts.
All right, so
That's
then
what I'm
I-
explaining to you. I am a professional, and I do know this stuff. I've taken classes for it, and I deal with DSA and the DEP on a daily basis. So, dog officer is not in charge of coyotes, rats, rodents, possums, chipmunks, squirrels, any of that. That is environmental police officers.
And it's against the law to trap and relocate wild animals.
So you're pushing these animals into the neighborhood with no regard of what it costs the neighbors to actually take care of them.
So have,
Board of Health has been aware of it for 4 years. If you would like to call them, you can ask them. They're not here, they're not invited.
they
Joe, do
they
you got any
received a
further
copy of the
comments on
agenda.
this?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. They received a copy of the agenda, and they would have made comments if they felt it was appropriate. Have you reached out to the Mass Environmental Police? Have you?
Just to back up for a minute, remember this area has already been trimmed in the past. It's a pretty limited amount of habitat that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
this happened again,
Happened a
this
week
happened
ago.
also last
A week ago.
fall when it was trimmed, same thing.
They trimmed it a week ago.
And yeah, this was a couple of weeks ago before the lobster fest.
Joe.
So
Just so you know,
Yeah,
that.
that's all we can do. It's not our area of expertise or responsibility. We can,
Deny the permit of cutting and stop the animals from running into our neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's
that-
no,
that
there's
could
no
happen.
conclusive evidence that this
Representative
project,
government, you're supposed to represent the neighbors. You know, that's what you're here for.
well, what I'm trying to tell you is this, is we had a permit before on this exact work, and this never came up. It's probably got more to do with the DSA than this. However, you haven't contacted the Mass Environmental Police. You know, we can try to do that, but we need to see, you know, Ms. Jordan's evidence and, you know, other things.
I
And
have it. Do you wanna-
listen, I'm talking real quick, sorry.
if you could let him complete.
If you just provide that to us and put it on a thumb drive, we'll take it from you, we'll give you your thumb drive back, and we'll reach out to appropriate parties about this. We'll use this as record and see what they can do. But if animal control can't do it, that's their specialty, and it's beyond them, which in some of these animals, that's the case. Mass Wildlife is not gonna gauge on that, that's fine. I do agree Mass Environmental Police would be an appropriate entity. Then we can ask them about their advice on it. But again, this project is similar to the one in 2017, and we didn't have any of these complaints then. It's more the DSA oriented.
Yeah, so this one, we can work with Bill to do what is necessary.
One other
identify
thing I
yourself?
want to say about that. I feel
I'm
like
gonna go to the
in
next, I'm gonna go to the next woman.
I just want to point out.
What's your
keep
name for the
referring
record,
to my name,
please?
Sorry.
Wait,
Madeline Daly, 18
Madeline Daly,
Bradford Street.
18 Bradford, I got it, okay.
So, you know, I can see where you're saying, oh, it happened in 2017, so everything should be fine and the same. But, you know, it's like, you can look at that in the sense of, well, the grocery prices and gas prices were fine in 2017, so there should be no problem with them right now. Times change, things change. You know, I think down there more coyotes and animals have come back in the past 5 years. I definitely don't remember at nighttime hearing the coyotes as loud as I have in the past few years. I can tell you one thing, I never heard them back in 2017. So we can't refer to the permit of 2017 and say it's apples to apples, because it's not. Wildlife changes, wildlife moves around, and we have an increased amount of coyotes down there. I mean, and you know, if you support it and something happens to somebody, then you are equally responsible for whatever happens. So you have to weigh on the cause of, could something happen? Could it affect a child in a backyard? Could it attack somebody in their backyard? Could it attack an elder person that can't move or doesn't have as much flexibility to get back into the house? You have to weigh on the side of caution and safety. And if the coyotes are 20 feet from somebody's house, that's not very far. So, you know, 2017 and 2022, we're living in very different worlds. So there's no way you can turn around and say, well, it was okay in 2017, it should be okay now. That it's two different times, 5 years apart.
Okay, Mr. Herring.
I will take additional questions, but I want to ask everybody, please, nothing new and to the point and short. We've got a long agenda, we need to get things done, so I do.
Your name for the record, sir?
Joe Pasevich, 25 Wilson Road. Looking at, this is just a portion of the project area, right? Isn't
Yes,
there-
correct. I just, Joe, real quick, because he's got a full permit, a full RDA, and it's these items you're seeing here, and then it goes on above, you know, up towards the wastewater treatment plant, and that's in the RDA, which I thought we gave it to you.
One side of the
So you
road.
do have it, okay,
Right.
got it. Liz got it.
I just didn't.
Yeah, not a problem.
Questions.
Not a worry.
And the other area of cutting goes along the length of driveway all the way to the.
Correct, and he said 3 feet roughly,
3
and
feet
it's
on
in
each
riprap.
So we trim 3 feet, but how many extra?
Is this area that we're looking at here, where the Harlow Park is, how would you I'd like to know how you guys would characterize that particular location in terms of the act.
Of the act, it's definitely, it's got a wetland delineation. You see, these, it's basically, it's harder to see here, but there's actually a wetland delineation along here.
What's that red
The red is riverfront, okay? This is the 100, and the one behind it is 200. The blue here is buffer zone. It's not, there's a wetland right here, you can follow that, and it goes 25, 50, 75, 100. This is taken from the SE 422929 plan for the DSA, which includes the wetland delineation right here, which I walked every square inch. On this side, I did get ripped apart going in on all around it, and we didn't move any flags in this case. It was a pretty solid line. It's clear cut where it is and where the wetlands are not, based on vegetation, based on Chapter 505. So this is an excerpt from SE 422929's plan for the DSA. So we thought it was the best one that also had the wetland delineation, which you can see here is a green line pretty much around here, okay?
Okay, so this is riverfront, and is it also a riverbank?
Okay, so the bank, the river bank, the riverfront, okay, the river is, starts at the elevation, which is coincident with the bank. So, Joe, this is real quick, because we did this with some engineers recently. If this was 3.8 and this was the elevation of the bank, and it went all the way out to here, then that would be the riverfront, and this would be the 100 to it, if that makes sense. So it's based on
You
elevation.
mean riverbank?
No, there's no river bank. There's inland bank, coastal bank, there's river, okay? And riverfront. And riverfront is based upon where the elevation meets, where the elevation of the bank here, the coastal bank is, all right? So if this was just as an example, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm being very specific here, because it's a long story here. If this elevation goes to here, then the riverfront begins here and kicks out to 100 and then to 200. So
So
if we,
is it bank? Is there any bank there?
down in here, he's not cutting any of the bank, down below.
There is bank.
But it's, there's across the river, there's bank. Right along this island, there's bank.
But
There's
it's
bank
also-
over here, but that's not really,
It's also outside of the scope of the project.
well, correct. And so what you're looking for, Joe, is for the project purposes, are they cutting into an area that's bank, or particularly maybe the high-quality grasses such as Spartina patens, black grass, Spartina alterniflora? And the answer would be no.
How do you know that?
Because he's hitting Phragmites here only.
And there's no other grasses in there?
Within it, they're lower, I don't know how low he's cutting, but, I mean, you want me to go in and check everything and part?
There you go. That's
I
my
don't,
point.
here's what happens. Because of the shade issue, Spartina patens will not survive very well inside of.
No, I don't need to know the genealogy and the growth patterns of all that. It's just, is it present? Number one, you're in a riverfront area at least.
Yep.
Number two, you're right up against the bank area, if not in it. It's hard to tell, this map does not indicate that.
Well, you can always get the plan, which is part of this record, and it is not in bank.
This is what I'm trying to get to, if
Yeah.
I may. Because of all these questions, because of we don't know how you're cutting it, first of all, I don't know why you're cutting here. Is it just to pave the grassy area larger?
No, they're cutting for vista pruning purposes. That's allowed.
Oh, so you're cutting in order so you can see the waterbed?
Well, no, Joe, right here,
You say vista purposes.
Joe up here. So this is for visibility
Sorry,
from a.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to.
So going backwards again. So this is being cut because it's a line of sight
No,
for a
no,
video.
no, I don't want to talk about the
Just down here,
shag
all-
one, and I don't
excuse
want
me.
to talk about the Phragmites in area down
Down
the
here.
bottom there.
This?
Two, is it?
It's 3 down here
Okay,
where I
so
am.
now, I understand that. To me, that's like what you would use the de minimis provision for, because it is a safety issue, it's a line of sight issue, I understand
Okay, so
that.
I-
But my focus is on the Harbor
I think
Park
you need to
and the
get
length of
more
Joe Dry Beak Way.
I wouldn't vote
Why,
for, okay,
this absolutely has to be a positive determination, because number one, you're missing all these details, you're leaving out all the details, you don't know what kind of species you're running into.
Actually,
in
I can
that
answer the
area.
questions if I can get that done right now. So basically what you have
Yeah,
a.
let me finish,
Okay,
please.
go ahead.
You don't know what you're running into there, you don't know what the actual impacts are gonna be to that near bank area. To me, riverfront is usually generally no touch, okay? And you're going against
No,
that.
Joe, it's 200 foot.
I understand,
it's
but
disturbed, right?
generally, it's got a very
Mr.
high
Pasevich,
performance standard.
we're rehashing what you've already talked
So
about.
let me get your
No,
answers.
I'm trying to get to my conclusion.
Then make it quick, please. I don't mean to cut you off, but we've got to
I
get,
know. but most of the talking has been done by.
But you've rehashed a bunch of times, same
And,
subject, so.
And so, to me, you don't know, there needs to be more definition of what the process is gonna be and why you're doing it. To me, it's not worth it just to improve the view of the water, okay? And also, we don't know what the process is gonna do and what the effects of the process are going to be. For example, you're gonna be cutting this Phragmites and other plants and other materials in there. You don't know the impacts to wildlife, you haven't documented what's in there with regards to wildlife and other plant species, and you don't know, for example, what's gonna happen when the cuttings are laying there. The cuttings themselves will then alter that environment along Dry Beak Way and inside the perimeter of the park, where you're showing kind of a very rough, sketchy drawing of where the cutting is gonna be. So all that's gonna have a definite negative impact. It's gonna just change the environment there. And without an order of conditions with specific direction as to how the cutting's done and when it's done and what to avoid and what not to avoid, to not come up with a positive determination is a crime. It's an absolute crime.
Okay, Joe,
You
can
know,
I?
and I understand the other areas.
Mr. Vesevich, I
That's-
understand your point. I think Bill understands your point.
I'm gonna
I'd
go
like to
real,
move this on.
I'm gonna make it real quick. So what you have is you have a salt marsh and a bordering vegetative wetland. It's bordering, because it's bordering the salt marsh. And that's what basically is happening here. Salt marsh can include Phragmites, but only up to the spring tide elevation, and he's cutting beyond that. He's in the wetlands by the bylaw, in the bordering vegetative wetlands, okay? And it's being allowed to cut. It's basically saying, yes, it is applicable under the bylaw and under, and the activities applies to the bylaw and to the act, but it's not altering, removing, et cetera, and requiring an NOI.
Shorten it up, Bill.
Altering the
Shorten it up.
wetland area, because you don't
So
know
if I
how
may,
the cutting's gonna be done under what,
do you
under
have
what
any-
conditions and what the
Mr.
impact is.
Vesevich, please,
I'm sorry.
do you have any compelling need to move this in the next couple of weeks?
We're cutting the same areas that were previously cut from 2017 to 2000.
Was there a permit for
April to
2017?
Yes.
Where is it?
The same-
Answer the
we're not
question.
cutting- We're not cutting the
Joe,
marsh,
we'll get it
we're
to
cutting
you.
the Phragmites.
And so you're doing invasive species management.
Yes, sir.
Invasive and
And if you don't do
opportunistic.
invasive species management, you're gonna lose all the other stuff that's there that we want
They've
there.
already overgrown some of the landscape in that lower part
Yeah.
of the walkway.
Thank you.
And Mr. Grafton has stated in the past that Phragmites that are in a salt marsh area or associated with salt marsh area as opposed to within the middle of the DSA, even though your consultant said that was a fact because of the fact of the species and it was therefore wetlands, that you yourself have said that
So you got that-
Phragmites
All
in
right,
the salt
I- I
marsh
got
you.
area are protected.
Mr. Pesevich, I have to say, please, we're gonna end the discussion. I wanna make sure everybody else has an opportunity. Is there any other questions, comments, discussion from others who come? Is anybody online? How about commissioners' discussion?
I just have one comment. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, because this is a first that we've heard, so it is something that we need to think about.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I guess my comment after listening to all this is, my first question is, what is the sense of urgency to do this work right now, or in the immediate future, or before there's an opportunity to collect more information about the coyote issues and the trimming issues?
It's a repeat of the past, so that's one.
Well, I mean, what happened, happened. I mean, a lot of things in the past happened
Yeah.
that don't have to happen in the
So
future.
He's not bringing in, herbicide and those kind of things, which absolutely positively must have an NOI. That's been flat out told to me by the DEP, and I agree with them. This is an area of bordering vegetative wetlands that is by the bylaw, and it may or may not be also by the Wetlands Protection Act. So these are things to consider. This is Phragmites, can be part of the definition for salt marsh if it's in the spring tide elevation or lower. If it's above it, it's not salt marsh, it's a wetland grass. And that has to be understood by the public. I feel like I gotta write some kind of detail on that so it's better known, because it makes a difference where it's located, how it's treated as a wetland plant.
So if we have, and I'm new to the commission, so I'm trying to learn on the job, if we have issues, the two issues that have been raised, one is the animal issues, the other is whether we should or shouldn't.
We have contacts with the Mass
Should-
Environmental Police. I
Well,
can
so could we
contact-
just, I guess my vote would be to delay this cutting, and work with the citizens' concerns.
Well, the concerns are getting intermingled with other cutting.
That's right. I tried to explain
I
that.
really feel this is, this park was fully permitted, how many years ago, Mike?
2015.
Yeah, and, this area had been cleared and planted and maintained, since then. So I really feel this is getting intermingled with the other objections to
Much
the
larger
cutting of Dred Spoils area.
No, it is not. It is not. And what happened in 15 doesn't make it
Mr.
right.
Besovich, please.
How dare you ascribe that motive
Joe.
to us, who are really concerned about this? You're ascribing a motive to us.
Joe,
And it's
please.
not true, it's not right.
Joe.
Well,
Joe,
then I
please.
apologize.
That's fine, that's
Substantive,
enough.
solid issues here.
Well,
And you just want to, what?
I'm ready to vote.
Sure you will.
You look like you need to say one thing. I'm going
Thank
to
you,
let you.
Diane Jordan, 15 Bancroft.
So wait, you're
No,
not
we're gonna-
recognized, you
I
already
need-
spoke.
Oh, okay, perfect. So,
Wait, you didn't speak, you
No,
weren't
I-
recognized by the hearing.
Oh.
I have not.
Oh,
She could speak.
okay.
I need Bill, looks like he had to respond to something. Really short, Bill.
Yeah, I think you're ready to vote.
sorry, the gentleman did point to me when I raised my hand. Was he?
Yeah, but somebody who didn't have the,
Oh.
I'm going to take this woman up back because she hasn't had the opportunity.
What's your name? Go back there.
Marlene Labossi.
Oh, hey, Marlene, how you doing? And your address is?
75 Central.
Okay, then.
Something is different this time because I never had coyotes running down my street before. So when you keep referring and saying, it was permitted, we're doing the same thing, something is different. Howling of coyotes, the pups, it's agonizing to hear them. Something has happened, something is different, and I want it looked into. I don't want us to just, okay, this is all good. We're saying it isn't good. We don't want it, let's look into it. There's no rush.
So I understand your point about the coyotes. We do see them quite a bit around. I live in the area, so not right there, but we have them.
So the commission
I
could.
don't understand why you would say that. You have them, we have them running down our streets.
I had them running through my yard
And do you like it?
just as much as you do.
Well, wouldn't you stand up at a meeting and say, let's do something about it? Or would you just say, hey, I don't mind them running down my street?
Different subject.
So,
No,
this
it
is,
isn't.
Marlene, so, what I could do is this, to kind of satisfy what I'm feeling is a split situation on the commission. I've had really good experience with the Mass DEP, Environmental Police. I have removed like many deer stands because the commission I worked for at the time wanted that. So I could commit to, and you could direct me to, call them and find out what the recourse is here and say, we have a public meeting. There was a lot of public concern about cutting in this area, in this vicinity, and what can you do about it, okay? And then we'll have a business session to talk about that. That's the best I could do, because I don't know what they actually can and can't do with their labor and what they're allowed to do, but they would have, it sounds like, from what everybody's telling me, they're our only recourse. We're not trained, We'd be out of commission and it would put the town, it would be a mess for everybody. So, long story short, the Mass Environmental Police would be the one recourse on that. And so the project can go forward, but he's not doing it right away. It's not urgent. This is so that he's got a permit in the future. But you would direct me to contact the Mass Environmental Police and maybe give a report at a business session, something like that. And that
So-
satisfies this.
How about a poll to see what we do? There's two options I see, or three. One is not to approve, or approve with a provision that Bill tries to facilitate, because it's beyond our scope to work on the animal control issues. Certainly recognize those as issues, but we can't do anything about them. The only thing we can do is facilitate something with that. And so we could approve a permit and direct Bill to do what he can to work with those who do have the ability to do that.
Excuse me, sir, if you approve the permit, we're just gonna be back here again saying, well, the permit was approved in 2022. And in terms of the vegetation that's up there, I've walked the whole thing, I have pictures of all of it. There are phragmites, you can see those mostly because they're tall. But there's a lot of other natural species up there. I have pictures of all of it. There's all kinds of flowers, there's.
We understand that.
You know,
We've-
it's not all phragmites.
We've heard that
You
somebody
don't have
cut
a
you off.
list of all of the vegetation that's up there. You're only talking about controlling the phragmites. But nobody's saying, well, these other species live there as well as these other animals. You're totally ignoring that. So if you approve the permit, and
So,
say that, well,
I'd
Mr.
like to
Grafton
go-
maybe
with-
can do
this
this
is
other
something we've
thing
already-
after,
I'm gonna go
you're really
back to
just
the commission.
approving it.
So you're not, since you continue to talk when I haven't given you the opportunity, please don't talk unless you've got specific permission from me. I'm trying to have the commission decide what they want to do, and you're making it difficult for us to consider your points. So I'd like to go back to my fellow commissioners and see if there's a thought in where we would like to go with this.
I have a thought. Would it be possible to just deal with the safety issues on the street and wait on the larger area, the Phragmites right on the bank? Would that be one consideration to split the project while we evaluate more, talk to environmental police? That's just one thought
That's one thought, yeah. We could just say hold off and,
on that part of it.
On the
and
whole
just deal
thing.
with the safety, because I know you're having a festival and soon.
He's got the de
Last
minimis
week.
on there.
Oh, we already did that, okay.
Last week,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
All right.
He's got the de
I'm
minimis,
getting a
so
little
he could get the
confused.
festival, that was already done the 17th.
Professional on animals.
Yeah, I don't think you're recognized, so, okay. So the thing is, you can close it and you can vote and do whatever. The commission's trying to take in everybody's feedback, and it makes it hard when they're not having an opportunity to think collectively. Let them have their time, please.
I would agree with Susan about the safety issues, and then as far as the vista pruning, I'm not quite sure how far down it's gonna be taken. I mean, I think there's a lot of those plants that aren't gonna be damaged at all. Would that be correct?
On the harbor walk,
Yes, you only wanna cut the,
for 3 feet to keep the poison ivy off the
no,
harbor
not the
walk.
harbor walk, but beyond outside of the park there, Mike. The vista pruning.
perimeter of the
Stuff here,
On the
Mike.
bank.
This is what, this is
The
what-
water
this-
side.
Yeah,
It could be down to, 6 inches a foot, same as other stuff. You need to cut it by hand or a push machine, there's no large machines going in.
yeah, so that's really invasive species management at that point. So we're back to almost the two options. One is, I think realistically, he needs this resolved, but breaking it apart, I don't think really does anything for him. So we could do something like approve it with Bill's provision to try to resolve it, or defer it until we get answers to some of these questions. If you think that
To hear
the
what
other
other
option
people, I'd like
works.
to,
You can
I'm just throwing
condition
it out
it in,
there.
so you can
Let's see.
condition it in
I'd like to hear what other
directly.
people think as well.
I mean, I think what Susan had to say about the safety, it's always a cause of concern, but the residents are obviously upset, and there's a lot going on here. So kind of like what she has to say, to kind of table it and see, where we can kind of make a plan of action to appease.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's invasive species management, but it also becomes habitat, unfortunately. That's the problem, the twist to that, which is difficult. I understand both,
So
they're
might
not pretty to look at, but they're habitat.
So might understand that all these kind of things coming forward, and we get these asked all the time, this is what we're gonna do to every one of these people? Everybody
not
comes
suggesting
forward.
that. I'm
because
just-
I'm suggesting is take the full scope into mind.
Well, I am, but we have people here that are complaining about a specific neighborhood, a specific thing. I'm just trying to respond to that.
So
Can we table it?
my proposal is going to be that we table this and get some more information rather than doing anything with it. And that will give.
So you have to
other
answer
master-
within 21 days on an RDA. You don't have that option unless the applicant gives you that option. That is the way it works.
That's what I was just about to ask. Would you be willing to ask for a deferral until another meeting so that we
On
can,
the lower part, yeah, that's fine. It's fine. On the lower part, but the harbor walk and the public safety piece, absolutely not. Because somebody hit by a car and it was discussed here, then it's on me, my watch.
So I think that was covered, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, under the de minimis activity, so you can do that work. This is a longer-term permit, so if we could just separate those out.
So the harbor park walk was not. Only behind it in the park was.
I don't think the
Not the
crosswalk was
4,000
included.
linear feet was not.
Okay.
So which pushes me into another RDA.
I don't want to do that. I don't wanna do
Different
that.
RDA. You're basically separating the RDA.
yeah, that's what I worry about.
This.
So
and
then
this.
that brings me back to the only real plausible option that we can
A
find,
lot of this
unless somebody
area
can help me figure out one, is
isn't in this
is
one and that.
to approve
This
this
isn't
with the
included.
provision
This is
that
not
we
included.
take advantage of Bill
No,
working.
no,
No,
no, because
would
that's
agree
just
with
an
that.
approval.
Didn't have
The-
expertise in animal control.
You already had the Lobster Fest, and everything's dying off now. So why is it such a concern now that fall is here?
So
and all
I'm
the
moving
plants
on
are drying
because
up and
I'm moving on because I've been trying to remind you that I need you to follow the rules of the hearing so that we can get someplace. I want to go back to Mike because he was trying to say something.
The work doesn't have to be done within 21 days. There's no rush to get it done. I'd like to have it done before the fall. It's been done before. I'm not looking for anything different that was done before. This is more an issue of the DSA that they're talking about. This is a very small area, you know, and the other side of the argument is we're talking about coyotes. How many calls been called to the police station? And yeah, little kids walking around the harbor walk trail inside the park, what if a coyote's laying in there and bites a kid? You know what I mean? So if you had the visibility of the area mowed down, is it safer just to risk some frag mites? So it's up to you if you want to separate the RDA or just give me permission to take care of the safety portions of it, that's fine. Like I said, it doesn't have to be done in 21 days. I got other projects to do, the dredging and things like that, so it's plenty to be done.
Let me find out from our expert on whether that's permissible. Can you
more time.
separate the two?
So I was just talking to Mike about, Celia, about the de minimis activity. This was included in the de minimis here, right? This was included, and then cutting along here and along here. So that can go. And where the ads right now are this, okay, and the portion up Drebeck, okay, for the RDA, so he has something to work with, so he's permitted, and the public is weighing in, okay? I'd be happy to call and find out what the environmental police will do. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of me. So I know those guys, and they'll get us information, and I'll bring it to bear.
So how can we resolve this? Can we separate the two?
You can't get a continuation unless Mike gives it to you, and
I
then-
suspect Mike give us, if we can separate the safety issues along the road so that he can do those cuttings.
I'm saying that
And-
I think he has it under the de minimis activity.
You can already do those cuttings.
I think he's already got that, so that's not an issue for him, that's correct.
We would vote.
Then we can ask Mike for, if you would defer to another meeting in 2
You
weeks.
can hold me get to the MEP, we'll call Pete Camachi, whoever, you know? We'll get to the bottom of it, and then Mike and I can collectively give you a report. I have taken down stands, I've done many, many things, okay? There you
Mike,
go.
will you consent to that?
Absolutely.
So if he consents to that, then we can do.
You can table,
we
you can continue,
this
yeah.
into another meeting.
Right, which should be the 5th of October, right? And Mike and I will work together, get your MEP information.
Well,
And
a motion to continue, correct, Bill?
I would do that if Mike, if the applicant allows.
Mike is
You
saying
said that
yes.
3 times?
Yes.
So we can go to, if
I can
preference,
still do the harbor walk for safety.
Under the de minimis activity, you can do the work
Minimis
that's
activity.
permitted.
entire walk, right? Down to the,
No, the DMA, the de minimis activity work, Mike, can be done. That's what we can do.
so we're also gonna have to approve that tonight.
No, you've done that
We've
already.
done that already.
So he can do
I
the de
thought we
minimis
did that
activity
already,
work.
but when it got rolled together, okay,
got
so we're
confused
gonna
too.
table this.
No, make a
I'm
motion.
sorry, we're gonna motion to continue.
Yes.
Second.
First,
Thank you,
second,
Bart. We need date specific,
that's gonna be October 5th.
October 5th. So the seconded motion is to continue this till October 5th.
Right, and direct Mike and I to get the Mass Environmental Police to give us recourse, all right?
Yes.
And the riverbank issues and faculty
And-
issues.
We'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seeing no one left, carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening
Thank
to
you for
us.
listening.
Thank you so much.
Can I say something for the week?
So,
Sure.
what would be helpful for me, and probably the other commissioners, if you could be very specific about the problem that you're encountering and what connection it has to the work that's proposed in the Harbor Walk.
How would you like us to present it?
Well,
Nice job.
I mean, I'm looking at when I look at and I see some of the area that's gonna be trimmed, I can't see how that's gonna stop or not stop coyotes. So I think being as specific as possible about the proposed work and how that will affect the coyote and other animal issues that you have, so that we can see it in writing, would be helpful.
I have to go to the bathroom. I know.
Okay, but you get it, but, yeah, but I think it would help the deliberations.
And I will get in touch with
Because when I
Billy
look at-
and
There's
the
no, there,
department.
Okay, thank
you don't
you.
need to get in touch with me on that. I'm gonna make a
Move along.
report.
It's been a long night.
Professional,
Try.
Yeah.
if you'd like to know about professional animals.
All right, so I'm gonna do what was told by me by the commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome. James, I just made you a co-host. Did you get that?
No, not yet, but it seems I have ability to.
20 years.
Then you must have got a co-host. I'm gonna give this over to the that was,
Okay, next hearing is 70 Preston Terrace, dock system. This is a new hearing, so I'll read the ad. In compliance with the regulations, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission, Wednesday, September 21st, to consider the request for amended order of conditions for 70 Preston Terrace. And the hearing officer is Joe.
Let's hope this one appears to be a little bit more straightforward for us, so let's hope that that really does work that way. So, Mike, are you going to be able to help us through this, or?
I can help you through this. There's also James Garfield on the meeting as well.
One thing I want to make sure, this is newly opened. We confirm notifications, taxes, DEP number.
Yes,
Everybody
taxes.
saw them all in the folder, but I like your answers better.
Yes, taxes, abutters, and DEP number have been verified.
Okay, so James Garfield, you're going to represent Morse on this project, if I understand right?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you for taking us to the site and walking through, and then updating your plans, so if you could.
Yep, so again, for the record, James Garfield, registered engineer with Morse Engineering, here tonight representing the applicant for this request for an amended order of conditions at 70 Preston Terrace. This was a residential dock project that was approved by the commission with an order of conditions issued on December 8th of 2021. As you can see, the plans in front of you here, our property lines are shown bold. The proposed dock system centered on the lot, and then the South River is shown towards the right of the page. So the only proposed plan changes we have here tonight are the addition of 2 aisles at the proposed float location. The location of the pier, gangway, and float haven't changed since the original approval. And these piles are just being added as an extra safety and structural integrity precaution, and to keep the dock in accordance with the character of the surrounding docks in this area of the South River. We've received comments from both the Department of Marine Fisheries as well as Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program at this point, and they are not proposing any plan changes. So with that, I'll leave it to you for any questions.
And I think I gathered that Bill is the one who's going to have some comments for us on this. Is that true, Bill?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward, though.
I think it is. What happened was there was one site plan that you saw earlier and then a revised one. James got himself a little bit too close to this float right here. I don't have control, James, so yeah, good, no, I don't want to control it. You go ahead. Just circle the one that you know that I had an issue with, right there. It was in around 28 point whatever, and it was too close. It did not match up to the prior approved plan. I said, look, you just put in the 2 pilings, show them where those are, James, the 2 pilings. Yep, so he's just putting those 2, and I said relocate them so you don't push this out into the mooring area. And this could be considered a minor activity. You would be not getting yourself triggering all the brand-new regulations and then losing this dock. So I think that's what should be, how that should be approached.
This is an adjustment to an existing permitted pier and dock.
It can't be a de minimis activity because you're shoving piles into the river, but it can be a request for amended order conditions, and that was the appropriate way to do this.
Yeah.
And, the only thing that's appealable on this, because the other portion of the project's already approved, are these two piles. And then this, location of
And
the,
that's why I called it an adjustment to
Correct.
a prior.
right. And Mike and I are suggesting standard special conditions, and inserts D2 and D3 are dock special conditions, which are, 1-inch spacing, no heavy equipment on the marsh. And D3, there are ongoing conditions, no fueling on the dock, and other special conditions, which I've simplified them for you.
No
That's-
dock storage
Yeah.
on the marsh during the winter time?
Well, the March storage is as per time of year constraints, as per chapter 505. It repeats itself in the special condition.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Any comments from online? So with that, I would like to just check again to make sure there are no comments here. I would like to propose to make a motion and close and issue amended orders of conditions with the special conditions as noted. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
So that
All right, James, nice
closes
job.
that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll deal with those later. No, I didn't do it. I'll give it to you later.
Okay, next one up is 66 Edmund Road. That had been a continued hearing. Joe was the hearing officer.
You guys are keeping me busy today.
Needs to retire.
So, this is a continued, so we already did all the confirmations. This is a dock subject to the new rules, unlike the last one that we just did. So you will note that I passed out from my fellow commissioners this blue sheet, which is my review of all of the regulations and how this this dock proposal meets those. So we have somebody here to go. James, are you doing this one again?
I am.
That's what I thought. Would you like to give us a summary?
Sure. So again, for the record, James Starfield, registered engineer with Morse Engineering, here representing the applicant for the notice of intent associated with the proposed pier, gangway, and float at 0 Edmund Road. Familiarizing yourself with the plan here, we've got our property lines shown in bold. The North River is shown to the left of the page, Edmund Road shown towards the right-hand side of the page. As you can see, our lot is proportionally long and narrow with a square footage of 8,113 square feet. There's an existing dock on this site currently, which is in disrepair. There's actually a safety hazard at this point. So we're proposing a new dock at this location. Resource areas consist of salt marsh, which we've shown the landward and seaward edges of in blue towards the left-hand side of the page. There's a bordering vegetated wetland, the limit of which is shown in blue towards the right-hand side of the page. Mean high water at elevation 4, as well as the limit of 100 inner riparian zone and 200-foot riverfront area, all shown in magenta. And then lastly, the limit of the FEMA flood zone, AE elevation 15, shown in green. So we're proposing a new dock, which will consist of a 4-foot wide by 334-foot portion of wooden pier, a 22-foot wide by 20-foot long portion of wooden pier, 3-foot wide by 35-foot long gangway, 16-foot wide by 8-foot long float. This dock's been designed per Marshfield performance standards for piers,
to the maximum extent practicable for this site. We're proposing 3/4 inch decking spacing for light penetration, and the proposed float must have 2.5 feet of water depth at mean low water, and this plan proposing 2.8 feet. We did a site visit out on this property on August 29th with the harbor master, Commissioner Ring, Bill Grafton, Mike Seeley, and Mary Ann Leonard from the North River Commission. The dock location was discussed on site, and the proposed float depth at that location was confirmed. Zoning Board of Appeals has approved this project at this point. We're hopeful to gain an order of conditions from the commission in order to move forward with Chapter 91 filings and through Mass DEP, as well as Army Corps of Engineer filings. We've received comments from Department of Marine Fisheries earlier today, actually, and they requested that we raise the elevation of the pier by 0.7 feet over the salt marsh to achieve 6 feet from the salt marsh to the bottom of the stringers. We're more than happy to accommodate that request, but we have yet to have an opportunity to update our plans on that front. I know on site there was a question of the existing floats that currently sit for the existing dock are currently sitting on top of the salt marsh. And it's in our opinion that obviously these floats will need to be removed off the site, and it's in our opinion that that area will naturally revegetate itself once those floats are removed, considering the fact that they currently lie within an area completely surrounded by salt marsh and bordering vegetated wetland. Yeah, so with that, I will pass it back to you for questions.
Thank you. I have, as you note on this, had one question in your presentation, James. I believe you said that the spacing was 3/4 inch.
That's correct.
I think the drawing said 1 inch.
Unless I'm mistaken, I thought it said 3/4 inch, but you know, at the request of the commission, we could bump that up to an inch.
Yeah, it's
For the record, James, that's always 1 inch, okay?
always 1 inch.
In
Sure,
Marshfield.
Sure.
So, as you'll see from my, my review, if you look at the frontage of the lot, it's 27 feet. And that means that the maximum projection that this dock could go out into the river is 13 feet, and they're proposing 163 feet. So it doesn't meet the bylaw requirements on that particular set. The 25% width of the waterway width is 210 feet. The maximum extension permissible is 62, so they're proposed at 63. That's not enough to worry about, in my estimation. One thing that is a potential problem is the dock needs to be 25 feet from the property line. This property is only 27 feet wide, leaving it a foot plus or minus on either side of the dock to the property line. So it's really tight to the property line, and we need another 48 feet. And let's see. There is the damage to the marsh grass, which typically is replicated at a 4-to-1. And we have had some issues brought up on that in the past year, so we may want to think about that as we move forward with this. And let's see. I believe that the harbor master came back in support, but that came at the very last part of the day. Bill, do you have any comments?
Yeah, the harbor master reduced your mitigation down to something like 3,550 feet, $550 thereabouts, James. So we have salt marsh mitigation to, we have to get current, roughly 3,550. The dock situation, we categorically disagree with you and the company. This is damaged, and we've had many other people go and do salt marsh plugs in the past. I would be surprised if the commission didn't take advantage of the up to 4-to-1, not only in this location, but other ones if possible. So I think that, as the Commissioner Ring was saying, needs to be mitigated. I asked for a restoration plan in the field. That was ignored. I'm asking the commission once again to take that into consideration. You've had docks over on Maycombers Ridge Road and on Green Harbor River that have got requirements for mitigation, because we don't allow docks below the mean high water or damaging the salt marsh out of time of year constraints ongoing like these have been done. People are tying them up. We have docks that are on the marsh. We have floats that are on the marsh. And mitigation was the remedy when the commission came together in April 14, 2022, and changed the regulation on that. And it's a 4-to-1. And there is a lot of debris that's been thrown to the side of the dock system, which you see has a very narrowing capacity here. James, can you maybe go and travel from the dock box slowly with your marker, right? So you can see up here.
Where would you like me to start, Bill?
On the dock box, down by the ramp.
Yep.
And then travel up. As you get into the vegetated, the wooded area and the BVW, you start to head towards the BVW. This becomes covered with all forms of debris. One of the neighbors spoke to me about this and said, Bill, please make sure to bring up the access problem. They used to come down with construction vehicles and park in that very tiny little point. They're basically where the property enters into what's known as Edmond Road, which is an unimproved section of Edmond Road. And he said, please make sure that access gets in there also. So an access plan controlling the construction vehicles during construction and some kind of notification in this neighborhood would be probably a wise thing to do. The removal of all that debris from that pointed area down to the end of the Phragmites also should be part of the mitigation component as well, to get removed. And any of the dock systems that are in place either needs to be cut off at the salt marsh level or removed completely, one of the two. This dock was not permitted ever by North River Commission. It was not permitted by the Mass DEP, and it was not permitted by the Conservation Commission. So I'm just throwing these things out there, so when you're thinking about the mitigations, which would be removal of the debris, the access plan, and the 4-to-1 for the damaged salt marsh, would be important. And again, that's not even on their property, that's on the Tanglewood property, which wasn't mentioned either. And I did ask in the field also to have some formal letter to be brought up to the commission that it's okay for them to restore in that location, because that's probably where the only damage is. Hopefully the commission recalls all that being approved in April.
Commissioner, questions, discussions?
So this is an unpermitted dock, but do we know how long it's been there? Does it predate the requirements for permitting?
I didn't get an answer.
We don't know, Bert. It could have been the Stone Ages. It's been a long time.
Well, how about
James, do you know how long the dock has been there?
I personally don't have the answer to that, but I will say during my North River Commission hearing, an older gentleman on the commission mentioned that, that dock's been there since he was a kid. So that being said, I don't have a hard number for you.
It's probably more than 2 or 3 years then, right?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back as long as the town GPS we can look at. That goes back to the 90s, and it existed at that time. So I believe it's existed,
It looks like it's aged, the existing one.
Yeah, I don't think you deny the dock. It's just that you need mitigation for all these bad habits from the past, because they were unpermitted, and then they threw their debris in the wetlands, and then they damaged the salt marsh, and now they want to build a new one and not take care of that.
Yes, it's become dilapidated, right?
It's like any of these other ones we find. Like we had one at Little's Creek, and it got removed. Everything got removed. Nobody gave us a hard time. That's surprising. Yeah, it's easy.
Is there public discussion? Seeing none. Zoomland discussion. Seeing none, I'm going to go back to commission. I think that there's at least one issue here that we've got to figure out how to resolve, and how do you fit a 25-foot dock onto a 27-foot piece of property that has 25 feet on either side? And that requires a variance.
Plus your distance out, which I did talk
Distance
about.
out.
So that's 2 variances, right?
Yeah. So when I look at it, I get that there are 6 of the criteria that aren't met. And in addition, we've got the mitigation issues. It may be better to ask the applicant to come back with a revised proposal if they can, to try to figure out how to deal with these. I'm not sure that we can deal with the 2 different distance issues. You just can't fit all that space into one, and there has to be some kind of mitigation. There are certainly shortcomings in the current application. My preference would be to continue this until such time as the applicant can come back with a more complete. If they don't choose to do that, my current opinion is to deny.
And I would suggest further that it be very clear that since they didn't listen in the field, that it's going to have a qualified wetland scientist behind it, and it's going to meet the commission's requirements, which are going to be 2 monitoring years for the plantings, reporting, and all that stuff, because salt marsh is not easy to restore. We know that because people went in after the boat fire down at the Green Harbor Marina, and it took them like 3 years to get it done. And they were working under an insurance program, and we gave an enforcement order, and I had that presented to the commission as a completed project.
Do I have, I think the most...
Yeah, so, a couple questions, Joe, just because you put together the spreadsheet. The distance of 162 feet, that's from?
High water.
High water, okay.
Yeah. Because the high water here is pretty high up.
Yeah.
Can you get
Go a
that?
long way.
Can you point that out for him, James?
Sure, so the high water mark is this magenta line.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this was much further up. I think the float was, maybe I'm wrong, it might have been downgrading.
Yeah, I believe the float was on the salt marsh.
Also a problem, James. All the reason more for mitigation.
Sure. And if I may, I can also suggest that we can provide that mitigation on the salt marsh as requested, and I'm sure we can also show some mitigation to achieve your 4-to-1 requirement within the existing walking path where we are now proposing a large portion of this pier. That's a muddy area that's been walked on within the BVW for however long the stock's been there. That could be an area that we could potentially mitigate.
I'd suggest it stays in the salt marsh wherever humanly possible, either on the property or get permission from the Tanglewood, because the salt marsh is up there with coastal dune is some of the most key resource areas we have. So that would be a downgrade in terms of mitigation, if you did that, but you would do that as a backup.
Just to clarify, I was saying on top of mitigating that salt marsh area.
Ah, okay, plus the removal of the stuff that's in that area.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So would people entertain a motion to continue to a date that James and the applicant are?
Yeah, just to clarify, all the changes we're requesting are to do with mitigation. As far as the structure itself, we're satisfied with what's here?
I had no problems with the structure.
Okay, just...
I don't believe Bill had any problems with the structure.
No, I didn't have problems with the structure, and I believe it was already there.
And the harbor master's report, as far as the location of the float and everything, he was satisfied with that?
Yeah, he was good with that. He had a little concern about the navigation, but I think he's fine in this area. He downgraded the shellfish from 4,300 to 3,550 thereabouts, and he didn't have a problem with the stock in general.
I think he said that one boat mooring might be close, and he had room to move it, and that he would do that if it got to that.
I just, this before I did, because this might got lost, is the access plan to that tiny little point right there. that has to be worked out because one neighbor was a little bit worried about it. And I told him I would look into it. You know, you just looked into the entire public here. I'm trying my best to help the public here.
Yeah.
So
So-
an access plan, James. Controlling the heavy equipment in there during the construction with notification to the neighbors. Be a good neighbor policy, you know?
Sure.
So, James, how long do you think you're gonna need to come back?
At this point, I would prefer to continue this to the next available hearing. I'll make sure to reach out to a wetland scientist in the morning and hopefully get something back to you guys.
That would be October 5th, Mr. Hearing
Fine.
Officer.
So I would like to make a motion to continue this hearing until October 5 to allow the applicant to come back with additional information. Is there a second?
Second.
John, all those in favor?
Aye.
No one remaining.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Well carried there, James. Well done.
Thank you, James.
James.
I was just gonna leave them there until the end and give them back to you, but.
Okay, next hearing is a continuation. It's Vicirca, 16 Wilson Road. Do we have somebody here to present this one?
Yeah, Rick's outside.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello, Mr. Savant.
Tonight? All ready?
Good. I'm the hearing officer, and you have the floor.
So
Can
we're
I
just
identify
here
yourself, please?
My name is Richard Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. Prepared the plan for the circus. As you may recall, last time we met, we were here when we went through a audition. We essentially got approved, but we had to work with the building department to regarding the substantial improvement. So during that process, it was determined that the project we had presented to you the last time was a substantial improvement, and they reduced the scale of the project. The plan you have before you tonight is one that was refined with working with Andrew and the building department to a point where it does not constitute a substantial improvement. And we'll basically just here tonight to show the revised plan, and this plan is, it eliminated, there was a larger addition off the back right of the house and off the, kind of the back left of the house. But now we're just doing a second story, we're dormering out the roof and doing a second story addition. And there's a little infill at the back left of the house that we're covering that is now kind of an open porch. But essentially, this is what we arrived at, working with the building department. This is a much different project, and it actually has a decrease in square footage from the existing by 3 square feet. So that's why we're here tonight, to present the revised plan and kind of review how we got here. That's basically it.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Just to verify, no grade changes, right?
No proposed grade changes.
Okay, because there was a concern from a neighbor about
Sure.
that, but,
Yep. There's no grade changes, the driveway's gonna remain just the same the way it is, no grade changes around the house at all. Second
Okay.
story work.
Mike or Bill, comments?
Yeah, they reduced it. He worked with the building commissioner, and the commission got comments from the building commissioner. It's basically an interior project, scoped back. He needs one diamond pier over here. You know, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to the other commissioners. Any comments, discussion? I hear nothing. I'd like to open it up to the public. Anybody have any comments on 16 Wilson Road? I hear nothing. Just standard conditions?
Yeah, standard conditions, we want to add in NFIP FEMA regulations of building codes under D2 and an elevation cert under D3, and that's it.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue orders of conditions. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second is Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next hearing is
Do you have the, Michael's?
Yeah, I got it.
459 Highland Street. It's a new hearing. In compliance with the regulations, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Code of Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by Marshfield Conservation Commission, September 21st, to consider the after-the-fact notice of intent filed by Walkers, Johnny and Rachel Rain Michaels, 459 Highland Street. And Susan is a hearing officer.
I confirmed all the administrative requirements have been met. We have a DEP number. And so again, this is an after-the-fact NOI for some unpermitted work that happened prior to the current applicant's ownership of the property. Would you like to?
Yes, absolutely. Rick Savant with Conduct and Taylor, and you need a chance to, I know you.
Yeah, no problem. I got something for you here.
So we've addressed, just as you stated, Susan, we have a situation here. These are the new homeowners that are here with me tonight, next to me. Some work was done, unpermitted work by the previous homeowner during they did file a notice of intent in 2003 for underground pools up behind the house. We went for an order of conditions on the old one, and this work was cited during the site inspection that was unpermitted. I have it highlighted in red there. Blow it up a little bit when you get a second.
It's a little blurry, I apologize. We got it as best we can here.
But essentially, on the wetland side of the house, there's a brick patio, there's there's a block retaining wall and a wood retaining wall adjacent to that patio. There's a small wooden landing or deck there, 58 square feet. There is a set of stairs leading up to the pool area on that side of the house. And there's the chain link fence around the pool. That was not shown on the original pool plan. The original pool plan was done by the homeowner. It was something that we were involved in, but they mocked up a copy of a plan that we had worked on and just showed the proposed pool. It did not show a fence or anything around it, so we included that also. Also, those roof gutters were just in the ground and then running out into the wetland. We're also addressing that with this plan. We're proposing to capture those roof gutters into rain barrels, and the homeowners are interested in using the water for gardening and for other purposes, for collecting the water in the rain barrels and eliminating those discharge into the wetland there. What we're proposing is, by filing after the fact, is permit those unpermitted activities, all of which, with the exception of 10 feet of the wood retaining wall, are outside the 25 foot. Outside the 25 foot on the original approved plan. So all those structures that we talked about, like I said, with the exception of 10 feet of that wood retaining wall extends into the 25 foot setback. It's outside the 25. And Bill had mentioned some fill too that we looked at and I'm prepared to discuss when we get to that point. What we proposed here on this plan is putting in some conservation markers along the edge of the existing sort of occupied area, the brush line. Got 4 markers shown there, and that's how we're hoping to address this. The owners are moved away, and new homeowners are there, and love the area they live in, love the wildlife and all that. We don't have any intentions on expanding or doing anything like that. We just like to permit these structures that were put in without a permit, and have no problem putting in conservation markers to improve the that's what we're proposing to do, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
You had mentioned that did the homeowner want to speak, Mr. Michaels, or you didn't? There was something in a note that said, okay.
No, I don't think so.
That's fine.
I'm happy to answer your question.
Oh, no, that's all right. It was in a note, so I just wanted to recognize you. I know that there's been some requests for additional information, and I've
Yes.
agonized over both of that. And as the hearing officer, I would just like to state up front that I'm willing to accept these plans and the mitigation offered in the form of the 5 conservation posts and the drain spouts going into rain barrels. And I know there's some talk about, it's been suggested that you give up 800 square feet of lawn and also move up 2 more two more conservation posts. My concern about this is that this is for work that went on 19 years ago by previous owners, and I have trouble having them be so impacted in their property for work that they didn't do. So I feel like the mitigation of the conservation posts will prevent future encroachment, and we can help them if anything else comes up with vegetative management, or there's ways to do that and correct permitting. So I think you'll understand that going forward, but that's just my opinion, so that I'm satisfied with this for that reason. So is there any comments from other commissioners? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you yet, Bill. Do you want to do commissioners first, or Bill?
You guys could kind of close out. You've got your write-up. Basically, the line was drawn, as Rick said, on a 1996 plan. And the commission then voted no activity inside of the 25. So there's activity inside the 25. And then what happened was, on top of that, they rotated the position of the pool, which brought it closer to the wetlands. They added a fence. They added a lot of stuff that might have been permittable, but they added some of it inside what looked like the 25 or thereabouts. So they're back for that. And the intent of the 1996 commission was nothing inside the 25. And if you look carefully at this, you have two lines. You have a green line, 1996, and a green 25. And then you have a blue line. And it's notably, we don't have the 25 blue, which is new. You don't have the 50 blue. You don't have the 75 blue, and you don't have the 100 blue. It's obscuring what's actually going on. The wetland line from 1996 is extinguished, and the commission's being kind to just be looking at the 25 from the 1996 plan. If you were to move it up gradient of the blue, it would almost be into the house, and that would be a little bit pushing it, I would think. Nobody would want to go there. So what I had proposed was moving conservation markers out to cover this small area here and have them naturally rejuvenate the area right about in here. Just let it go natural. That's all. No plantings, no monitoring, done. But I don't decide.
Well, do you know where the house was built?
The original,
1995, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead, right.
95.
When it was built, it was at the 25 structure regulations.
Yeah, I did submit a copy of the approved plan that was
Yeah,
built,
saw
and the
that.
grading that was approved at that time was, I have some, right up to the wetland, almost right up to the wetland line.
Right.
So, I don't, other than the section of retaining wall that, and I showed, Bill's right, there's two lines, we did have it reflagged.
Right, right.
But my intention was, we're trying to close out the order of conditions from
From previous.
93, or 2003, and that was the line that they were working with. So it has changed, it is upgrading now, but the permitting was done on that 1996 line.
Right.
And the only thing that's in it is a portion of that retaining wall. Those other things are outside the 25 foot, with the exception of the area that Bill's talking about, but I'm not sure if that work was done as part of the pool, or if done, I believe it was done prior to the 2003 pool.
There's also discharge pipes into the wetlands.
Right, and those have been dealt with.
Yeah, so.
And I think it's actually helpful that we have a new line, so that going forward, we know clearly there's issues. I mean, it's 19 years difference between the first wetland line and this, and wetlands move a lot, and groundwater is going high, so it's not surprising, but again, you didn't build these things unpermitted, someone else did a long time ago, so I guess that's it would be nice to have things unvegetated in areas. It's always a great buffer zone, but I feel that that's impactful to your property, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they worked the line that was delineated at that time, so I would agree.
Well, you still don't have the 25, 50, 75, and 100, so if you're gonna go with this plan, at least get that back, so we have a true line, because invariably, this will be back at some point. We'd like to put a structure down here. No, you can't, because the 25 is now through your house. That's gonna change it.
Well, this is for this work that's shown on the plan.
Yeah,
If
but
they
it's
come-
lacking,
if they
it's
come-
lacking what's on the checklist that the commission approved in 2021, the 25, the 75, 50, and the 75 and 100. That's what I'm saying I'd add on to a revised plan.
We are allowed to have discretion on this, and this is an after-the-fact filing, and we've done others before where we have not had people mitigate for things that prior owners have done.
To get a revised plan by 12 noon Friday is often asked by the commission.
Right, and that's up to the commission to decide. Do we have any other comments?
Given all the changes in this property, I think it would be reasonable to ask for the modification of the plan.
With the setbacks, you mean?
With this, yeah, it's not a lot to ask for. Rick usually does those pretty quickly. And it addresses that question, because one could continue to argue for more conservation space or return of the 25, and that would impact their current property.
Right, that makes
One
sense.
could argue that it's reasonable to ask for that. So asking for the plan with the additional lines on it, I think is a good compromise, without adversely
Yeah,
impacting them. I don't think
agree with
I'm
that.
up for punishing them for somebody else's work.
Right.
But we also have to recognize
Right.
this is what our constraints are.
Right.
Sure.
It would be helpful to you going forward, too,
Yeah.
to have
I
that.
just didn't show it because I didn't want, it was confusing enough with the different
Yeah, it was
lines.
kind of-
So I didn't put the other buffers, that's the only reason.
Yeah,
but
that's
sure.
an easy thing.
I'm more than willing to add that to the plan if that's what the commission wants it shown.
Do we have any other further comments?
Do that with a special condition, still approve?
Yes,
Yeah,
that would be,
yeah.
yes. Right. Any further comments? Is anybody here to speak to this in the audience or on Zoom? Any comments from the public? Nope, hearing none, I guess I will make a motion to close the hearing and approve this with special conditions for after-the-fact filing.
Yeah, I mean, the typical after the fact would be your standard specials, but within 30 days, you'll register both sets of orders with this, okay? With the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and provide evidence to the Conservation Office. Post a Mass DEP sign and provide evidence to the Conservation Office. And then your standard special conditions would carry from there. Once that's all done, the commission can revisit your old order of conditions and close that out, because this will have satisfied it and you will have recorded it, which is required by 310 CMR 10.0, special condition 10, and also this order of conditions.
Yep. No problem with that.
And a revised plan.
And the revised plan by-
Revised
with
plan,
the setbacks.
correct, with the 25, 50, 75, and 100 from the blue line. Okay, from the 2022 line.
And this is,
Yep, let's do
Blue
12,
line.
yes.
showdown.
Sure.
Which basically, if you want to do anything, you're going to have to come back.
Yeah,
So-
it's a,
And they have no intentions of just trying to clean this up.
can I add one thing, speaking of that, the building departments had a comment that you need to close out, there was no filings for the pool, there was never anything that was closed out, so just talk to the building commissioner about the pool, so that would be, whatever he is requiring, you have to,
The standard conditions include
But
obtain all
that's-
subsequent permits, but this is a past thing, so reflect on it backward and clean up any remaining permits. They asked us to convey that message, and I thank Commissioner Karen for bringing that up.
so, may I have a second? Did I make the motion already?
I will second it.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Excellent. Thank you very much.
all right, very good.
No.
Okay, next one up is 3 Minot Street. This is a new hearing in compliance with the regulations, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Code of Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission, September 21st, to consider a notice of intent filed by Andrew McHugh, 21 Hutchinson Road, for construction of an elevated deck. Yeah, we got somebody here to present this project.
Yes.
Sir.
My name is Steve Leonard, I'm Wilson Drive. I'm also the builder for this project and rep for the homeowner. Cheryl McHugh is here with me.
Okay, you want to describe your project?
Sure. So what we're looking to do is,
Bill, do you want to get that up? Do you want to
Sorry
put
about
it?
that. Okay, then. Zoom out. Bear with me there, Mr. Leonard. And hopefully this one's running away from me. Okay, there you go.
here we go. So we finished the house project and we remodeled the entire house about 2 years ago. And we would like to put a 14 by 20 deck on the back of the house. And basically use, with no stairs, we just use the stairs on the side deck and make a connection with a platform that connects it so you can access the deck. Put the deck on helical piles, so there'll be no digging. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they basically go down with very minimal disturbance. And the whole deck would basically be a composite decking. And pretty much right now, all they have for seating is stone down by the seawall, which is really not the safest area, a bunch of stones, and her mom and dad come down, and a lot of people, they also have a relative that's in a wheelchair. It's a little difficult for him to get down there also. So pretty much that's what we're looking to do.
Thank you. Comments?
Oh, right. So I give them an additional information request, and I asked for some additional items. I asked for a planting plan for these areas right here. The wetlands scientists have come back and said, your plan looks great to me, et cetera, et cetera. I've talked to them before, and I'm gonna talk to them again, not you, the wetland scientists, that there are specific standards required. There's monitoring that's required, there's time of year, you do a implementation plan, et cetera, and there's soil amendments and so on. We don't have any of that. There were 2 conservation markers here and here on prior orders of conditions. And this area down here was to stay revegetated based upon SE 42-768. And it was during that public hearing that excuse me a second here, that the NOI that was submitted by, I believe, Stenbeck and Taylor actually called out Barrier Beach. It's not correct. I've actually said the same thing, but it is dune. And so the NOI, which I have here, calls out Barrier Beach. The Mass DEP number file says reference 310 CMR 10.28 beach, coastal dune, and 10.29 Barrier Beach, and that's the DEP. And then the legal ad, okay, that's right here. And then the legal ad also calls out Barrier Beach. I don't think this is actually Barrier Beach when I look at it more closely. I think the area is part of the 1969 soil survey in here, which basically calls out the area as dune. And it's this environment down in here and over in here. And it says DU in here. And that's a soil survey done in 1969, which is pretty much infallible. And you have evidence from the past that this has been called out. This is very similar to 17 Oregon. It has all the signatures of the commission at the time was treating it as Barrier Beach, although I don't think it is. I think it's just straight coastal dune. Therefore, when they go and do something like this, they have to meet the standards of 310 CMR 10.28, and they can't do anything that would damage or cause the dune to be impacted and stop the sand migration, the water migration, etc., or destroy the vegetation. Now, the report from the qualified wetland scientists on June 23, 2021 says it's very sparse down there. I have photos which I've shared with the commission. I'm sure you've gotten to the Google Drive, and it's actually quite thick and rich. And so that will be damaged because the amount of light going on the grass will be diminished, and it will make an impact. So that's something to factor in. Additionally, there was an RDA because there was some additional work done, and Steve did drive that also. I'll see if I can find this really quickly here, and then I'll end my conversation. There was work along the sides and along here, and the house itself got, upgraded, et cetera. And that was all done on an RDA, and the conservation markers came back in. So I asked them to put the conservation markers on, meaning there's no downgrading activities, and I don't know if we're all on the same page on that one. So the location of those conservation markers needs to be done in a way that, protects the dune. If this thing is gonna be a deck here, it's gotta be allowed to, the grass has to stay, because it's not meeting the performance standard of 310 CMR 10.28. And if they wanna mitigate over here, these stony areas, which I've witnessed, and I think Commissioner O'Donnell was with me, along with Conservation Agent Seeley, and I've been on the site before, you need a mitigation plan that meets the criteria of the commission, and not some qualified wetland scientist saying it's fine. So I think that this needs a revisit from that. I'm not saying that the deck can't completely be permitted, but it's gotta be done in a way that allows that grass to live underneath it. And these areas have to be truly mitigated, and there will be destruction also in here, and they're trying to mitigate with this. But soil amendments are needed, you need to have time of year constraints, you need to have direction on how to make the plants grow, and then the homeowners need to either do it, or they gotta hire somebody to do that work. I guess that's it.
Okay, to sum it up, there's an order of conditions already outstanding on this?
They got a COC. And the COC had ongoing conditions that this was to remain vegetated.
Okay.
This was to remain vegetated.
So.
Which we want to do.
Okay, but,
Yeah.
there were conservation markers required, right?
Yeah, there were, and they were on an as-built, but it got very difficult to close that out, and they ended up hand drawing them on there. So they didn't get referenced on the orders of conditions. So the orders of conditions from 768 referenced the vegetation back
Well,
here.
when you did, I'm sorry, I didn't make a site visit on this. I've
That's
got
all
a
right.
lot going on, but,
Yeah.
are there conservation markers there?
No, they're not even there.
No,
Okay.
but they are going to be placed in.
But they were also said to be
Okay.
placed on the RDA later, so it's definitely been known that markers have to be there. And additional ones might be needed to,
And then in the area beyond, towards the resource area from the markers, has there been disturbance or damage?
no, since I've been there, there's been, this area that, right here, that I'm flagging, has not been changed. But what will change is the path will go right through vegetation, and then they will probably, looks like I don't know what they're gonna do here. They're gonna mitigate down here.
We're looking to move that path a little bit over to the
Right.
right. and
The question,
obviously make up-
Steve, the
make up
question,
any loss.
Steve, the question is, what's going on here? Because does it have concrete coming out or whatever it is, and you're gonna have stones, which is probably an improvement, but you're going right through vegetation.
Well, it's calling for the concrete walkway to be removed, so
Right,
that's.
and then what are they doing in there? Because I don't see any mitigation there. They're doing it down here off in a different location.
We're gonna add in there. It's gonna, obviously, once it's removed and we shift it over, that's gonna probably fill in. That area, when Brooke Monroe looked at that area in 2021,
Correct.
her letter, that was pretty sparse.
I got
It
pictures,
has
Steve,
grown
that
in.
say, I got pictures that say different, so you and I would probably look at the picture and we'd say, okay, I see what you're saying. That,
So Bill,
it's
what I'm
logical,
saying
man.
is it's grown in now, because we want it to grow in. The homeowners want that to be full, and they want to add more down there. That deck is gonna be 4 feet off of grade. Building that house there for the time we built it, most of that day, that whole back is shaded. That sun comes around, and it's on the other side of the house. It's in shade as it is, and it's never died.
So the conditions that are existing right now are perfect for a lush beach environment, and, because it's very lush. I'm not gonna go blow this up and go to the pictures. What I'm sort of suggesting is there's a lot of work that still needs to be done here. There was a lot of front work. Steve's been pretty good about making sure as people are going. I'd like to have a chat with them, and if the commission will direct me to do that, and get this thing moved in a better direction. It's missing what the qualification, what the commission normally wants for mitigation. We need a better answer. The commission needs a better answer on what's going on here, and this deck has to be high enough up to allow for this to continue to be functioning, because otherwise it's not meeting a performance standard, and that's coastal dune, which is one of the most important areas that you are in charge of protecting.
Well, the deck is at the level of the house, correct?
Yes.
Shoes?
Yes.
Yeah,
That was-
maybe that's to rise up a little, who knows?
The area we're mitigating is going to be equal to what the deck is. We're going to add that further down with it's all stones right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna make up probably more than what we need, that possibly, if, let's just say the deck was there, it's 4 feet off the grade. Let's just say every bit of the vegetation under that deck was to die, which it won't. It's not going to. I mean, obviously, maybe in the middle of the deck, but obviously it's got plenty of sunlight going in. So it's not going to be how much we're gonna actually add. We want to add more down, get rid of all the stones and bring all that, that vegetation in.
So
Okay.
there are
I'd like
two
to-
separate areas, Bert, just so I'm on the same page. The stones are down towards the front. There's like an apron down in the front, which I know you didn't just site visit,
Yeah.
but John can elucidate. He saw it, or Commissioner O'Donnell, the other Commissioner O'Donnell. And there are no amendments here. There's nothing. There's no, nothing. There's no, the quote, they said you could do this, basically.
Okay. I'd like to open this discussion up to the other commissioners.
Sounds to me that they're trying to do the right thing. I think the drawings don't do the things that we need. For instance, I don't see an impervious table. I don't see a call out on the new walkway on construction and how it's going to be.
I think we have that in the plan.
I didn't see it on there for the, it shows
These guys call that the standard.
the understructure
That's due.
and, you know, the cross-section, so that you've got like grade base and like how deep it's going to be, so that we can be sure it's going to be permeable. And that's not there. So I think we probably need to have them work with Bill to get that stuff on the drawing. It sounds, listening to you and listening to what you want to do, it sounds like you're trying to do the right things. This doesn't help sell your point, I think.
What we're looking to do is take up a poured concrete walkway.
I understand.
And just put patio ones that obviously have plenty of space in between.
But he's not doing the same location. If they were, and I know why, because it's been explained to me, it makes sense. And I said, you're gonna be destroying vegetation, you'll need to mitigate for that. They're gonna leave behind a sparse spot where they pull up the concrete, or they're leaving the concrete, and then you're not getting any benefit of pervious space. So those are the values and the metrics you gotta be looking at.
We don't mean to be giving you a difficult time, but what happens for us is we get a difficult time when we send a permit to the state that doesn't have all these answers, and they can kick it back to us, meaning that you are now lost all that time, and now you've got to go back and deal with all their issues. What we're trying to do is get it done now so that when you try to bring it, or we all try to bring it to the state, it doesn't get bounced back. And
So what is not answered right now?
Okay.
So I'm clear on it?
So there's a punch list, Steve. All right, so we need a qualified wetland scientist report. So I will write an email that you can send to Brooke. She'll get it, no, I'll write it to you, so you can say, this is what they want, because I know what they want. On enforcement, I know what they want on mitigation, replication, and restoration. Then you can do that.
Okay.
And there's going to be monitoring, so that's gonna go on. And so that report will be something that you can read and say, okay, I gotta water it in spring, I gotta water it, whatever. It'll tell you exactly. Also, where the location is being pulled up here, that's not even factored in. That's a small area, but it's, if it comes out, you benefit from the impervious table, which needs to be on this plan. So Mr. O'Keefe needs to know it needs to go on the plan, not a separate letter. 1 second. Okay, so that's the way it goes as per the checklist. So this time it's gonna go on the plan. That's gonna be another issue. I think it's just easier if you and I meet, like we did on that other property, and get it figured
I
out.
just want to add one thing too. All that plantings down there are not natural to that yard. They were brought in by the previous owner. So that's, you know, they didn't just grow there naturally.
So here's what's gonna be told to you by CZM, conservation, et cetera, is you got erodible materials, you got a dune, and you got the beach grass. Therefore, you gotta meet the 310 CMR 10.8 standards. This came from the past in the 768 plan, which is back in, 91. So it's been going on for a while. So we need to cure that and make sure that that works. And I think the commission wants you to get together with me and straighten it out.
Excuse me, that impervious table you're looking for, that's part of the filing. It's not on the plan, but it's in the filing.
Typically,
It
it's
needs
on
to be
there.
on the plan, that's what I'm gonna say. And then what, nope, it needs to be on the plan, it says it clearly in the checklist, so that's not even
You sent me
negotiable.
Bill, you sent me something, you wrote on the text you sent me, and that's exactly what I did. So, I mean.
Now it needs to be on the plan, Steve. I thought this was gonna be further along. It's not. It needs to be on the plan. It always needed to be on the plan. I'm not sure we're arguing about this at all.
Why don't we just get you guys to sit together with Bill and kind of put this together? Because it really sounds to me that you're trying to do the right things. Maybe some communication issues and trying to make sure you get what you need and we get what we need so that we can help you move this ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just as the homeowner too, like I do want to say, we've been trying to do the right thing. So what we just really want to do is get you guys the information you need. It's going to drastically change the way we use our home and the way we spend time with our family, which is why we got the house to begin with. So, you know, our only goal here is to get you all what you need. We want to make up the vegetation, but this is going to mean a lot to how we spend time with our family, right? So that's all we're trying to
Yeah,
do. We're
you're
trying to
gonna-
do the right thing. So.
I think I can speak to the commission that you'll be able to get your deck. There's just a few things that you have to,
I think one last thing, the commission should tell them that this is Dune. I was wrong to call it Barrier Beach, as was everybody else, so I joined the club, even the DEP, but it's Dune, and I think the Dune should be on there. The commission should declare it a Dune. This is an accessory structure to a house in a dune that potentially could meet the standards, okay? It's not an addition wiping out everything. It's still got the potential to meet the standards. So I would recommend that the commission require that dune be called out as per the 1969 survey, which I just provided.
And if I could say, we've done pretty good work over there trying to get that. It was pretty sparse. It's been cleaned up, it's been worked on. It has been taken care of, and toward, you know, at this point, to our detriment, it is doing very well.
yeah. No,
That's what we want to keep.
understood. I think we can move this along. I'd like to open it up for public comments. I hear none. Any further commissioner discussion? In that case, I'd like to make a motion to continue. When do you want to come back?
October 5 is the next one. Or October 19. Which one? 5? 19 or 5?
You can come the 5th if you're ready.
Everything that we talk about is gonna be due 1 week before, so that's 1 week from now. That's the dilemma. That's also in the checklist. So if you need a little more time, go to the 19th.
Let's do the 19th.
Then you can plan better, and you can get time with me. If you can't pick me up on the phone and get an appointment,
Okay,
then
I'd like
go
to
with
make
Liz.
a motion to continue the hearing until October 19th. Have I got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next one up is a continuation, 20 Dog Lane. I am the hearing officer. I see Mr. Zimmer.
For the record, John Zimmer, South River Environmental, on behalf of the applicant. Bill, if you don't mind, to quote the.
Yeah, all I have is a stagnant one, just so you know. We do our best here, but. Oh, it happens. Oh, sorry. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Okay,
All
I'll
right.
just give a, while Bill's doing that, I'll give a quick recap. This is a notice of intent for a new single-family home within the 100-foot buffer to BVW and inland bank associated with an intermittent stream. The house is situated outside of the 75-foot no structure. There's no activities proposed within the 50-foot no disturb. So basically 50-foot back to the wetland is preserved. I believe there's a little bit over an acre of the property that's going to be preserved in its natural state. At the last hearing, we had some discussion on the accuracy of the survey. Bill had been out there and was questioning the distance from the edge of the pavement to the break in the slope as it heads back down towards the wetland area. So Pat Brennan and Dana Jr. reworked the plan, made some modifications to the contours that are out there, measured out the distance from the pavement to the 50-foot buffer, which is approximately 184 feet. So if you walk that back 50 feet,
it's 134, so just around the top of the slope, that's, I think, equivalent to around 125 we were looking at previously.
Yeah, we were looking at, we measured about 110 from the road out to a tree roughly here, because it's retaining wall, see it?
Yep.
Right about there, it's like, he's saying that's 125, 135?
No, I think right there is probably around 110. I think it matches up pretty closely with what you guys looked at in the field. One thing, or two things that I didn't mention at the initial public hearing is that the rear of the residence is going to be at grade, so there'll be a walkout basement. So that will really minimize any fill that's going to be needed around it. Now going back up, there's going to be what's called a double foundation. So the rear portion of the house is going to be, I think, a 4-foot foundation, then there's going to be a second foundation as you get closer to the street for the main portion of the house. Again, that's to minimize the amount of grading that's needed within the property. Like we said, there will be erosion controls put around the limit of work. Also, from what I understand from Mr. Junior, he's brought in some material outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, close to Dog Lane, the paved area, and I asked him to go ahead and put some erosion controls around the back side of those fill piles. It's outside the commission's jurisdiction, but you may have seen something when you were out there, so I wanted to make sure that he minimizes any potential for material to get into the buffer zone, hopefully before things were approved with the commission. The last thing is that there was a request to get an update on where he's at with the remaining permits for the property. The septic system, which is located between the residence and Dog Lane, wholly outside of the commission's jurisdiction. He has gone to Board of Health, and they've asked for some slight plan modifications, but he is working with Board of Health on septic approval, so that's in process. And then the last thing was with respect to planning board and zoning and a comment from the building inspector with respect to, from what I understand, 125-foot diameter circle that the structure needs to fit within for the plan regulations. He's going to be, the applicant's going to be asking for relief from that through, I think, the planning board, because right now the side lot lines make it so that it doesn't fully fit within that 125-foot diameter circle. What that would do if he does not get relief from that is it would require him to make the front of the house smaller. So the front of the house is located outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So regardless of what happens with planning and zoning with regard to that building envelope, nothing would change with respect to what's being presented to the commission tonight. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, so that pretty much summarizes all the information that the commission requested from the last hearing. Happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, Bill, you did another visit
Yeah,
with some new stakes.
I was out there with Mike and with Commissioner John O'Donnell, and they have stakes on the 50, 75, and 100 in multiple locations, so you could get these grades figured out, and that was really helpful, because, I actually thought the house was further back here, because we didn't know where the bank was, because we had round 1 of the elevations were off, round 2, and this is the 3rd version. So I actually had done some of this kind of, let's see how this is going to work out. Hopefully it doesn't go jumping. Why does it do that? It loves me, right? This is me taking a picture. This is the 75. The 100 is right there. There's a pink flag right there. That's Mike Seeley, who's sitting next to me. And that's John O'Donnell, who's one of the commissioners right there. It just, it seems a lot steeper, but that doesn't kind of give it away all that well. I'm going to try and go down here. You can see me down here with the retaining wall that's listed and shown on the plan, the 100 flag, the 75, and then the 50's back here, right around there with that tree.
So Bill, if you may, if you could pull that picture down just a little bit.
You want me to go down more? Okay.
Yeah, just so I can see the first one again.
Yeah, you want the
Where it
first
showed you
one.
at the top.
Yeah, all right. Let me see if I can get the darn thing to move just ever so lightly. Here we go. right there.
So the rear of the residence is right around that 75 stake. So it's gonna be more of a cut than a fill because the foundation's gonna be going up from that point. Because as I said, so it's gonna be a walkout basement, so you're really not gonna have fill around, you're gonna go up from there and then up again to where Bill and Mike are standing towards the top of the slope. So the design of the residence was done with the slope in mind to minimize the amount of cut and fill that needs to be done.
So you're gonna maintain the existing grades
For the most
pretty
part,
much
there's
everywhere?
some minor grading that's gonna go around the house itself, but for the most part, I think there's maybe a 2-foot change in grades as you move it up.
Okay, so Bill, with these investigations, are you now satisfied with the revised contour lines?
Well, you know, I gotta say this, that I'd like to have you look at a few things and then listen a little bit more to some of the other departments as well. I'm on the fringe that, yes, it's the third round, it's way better. But I think when the commission, I hope you were looking at that, I was standing right here, you know? And that was, these guys were up here. And it looked like a 10-foot, you know, increase. And these grades seem to have it, but not 100%. What you're getting is you're getting grade changes down here below the 75 of 2 feet to flatten that area in the back and over in here. And the question is, are these carrying this way too, and are you flattening over here? I don't see the markers on that. I also, we were told by the planning department that they didn't have the 125 foot drawing circle. They have a width line here. What the building commissioner has mentioned, it might be very tough for them to get the house a variance from the ZBA and a variance from the commission, depending upon what needs to happen. And he was indicating, I think, that the building circle, and I'm guessing, might need to be on here as per planning, and that would help out a lot. I was under the impression we were gonna get that, and I thought, great, that'll help the commission, but you don't have that.
There are lines on the plan that show the 125 feet laterally.
But they don't go in all directions. The commission does
Right,
not have
but
clear
as I
convincing
said, with
information.
respect to the 125-foot radius, if there are any modifications, if the variance requests are denied, it's not going to change anything within the commission's jurisdiction. It's going to decrease the size of the front of the house.
Yeah, I think our discussion has to be on where the we've already accepted the wetland line. Now we need to accept the, where the limit of work can be.
Well, everything that's on this plan is what you're approving, because the plan is cited on page 2 of the order of conditions as per a ratification vote by the commission. Therefore, if this plan is wrong and you approve it, then you've approved the wrong plan. So everything that's on there should be right.
What are you saying is wrong?
It's saying that we don't have the building circle and it might move, and therefore you could get this back in front of you as either a special condition de minimis activity request or a request for amended order conditions, and it might start heading down the gradient a little bit more, and it'll be very difficult to deny on that. So once it's gotten started.
So the question of the building circle has nothing to do with the contours. The question of the building circle is with respect to the actual lot lines. That's really what's going to drive this. So, you know, the question is the grading. If the commission's accepted the wetland boundary, the physical location of the buffer zones is going to remain static, right? Because the buffer zones don't take into account contours. That's basically just a lateral line on the plan. So it's just a question of ensuring that the erosion sedimentation control measures that are incorporated into the notice of intent are sufficient to handle the amount of grading that's going to be proposed up there. So, you know, we're willing to put in additional erosion controls if that's what the commission, you know, wishes. I mean, right now I think we're calling for compost filter stock. We're happy to do hay bales and silt fence. You know, and then you'll get an as-built plan at the end of the day that's going to show where everything is. If it's not, then, as Bill said, we have an issue, and we're going to need to come back with an amendment or, you know, some other type of filing to remedy that.
Account for the deviation. And that's what I'm trying to prevent here, is because if this has to move back due to that, it may come out of jurisdiction. We had an entire subdivision have that happen. that's what ended up happening there, because they made some small changes, and after they had applied for to the commission. So, you know, I just, you know, you could take the comments from the different departments, just like you would Natural Heritage or Mass DMF, you know, as the commission wishes, but it seems to me that that ought to be there, because if this thing is gonna move some, then you don't wanna find out it's moving down gradient, because that's the only location it can, and now they're coming back to you with that request for a variance, and you get kinda ahead of yourselves.
So just on behalf of the applicant, I mean, that's on the applicant. You know, if we don't anticipate anything changing within the commission's jurisdiction. You know, if the building envelope changes, like I said, it's going to change the front of the residence. It's not gonna change the rear.
Yeah.
Or if it's not gonna get pushed further down the slope. You know, it would just basically be a small house.
So once again, we know where the 75-foot line is.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the limit of
structure
for us. We had talked about the location of the conservation markers,
Yeah.
possibly modifying them. Right
I
now,
didn't have any success with Dana. I spoke to Dana about moving these. See, there's a tree line he's protecting here, okay? But just for everybody, when you see a tree line, that's the branches, not the trunks and the tree roots. So if there's grade changes in here, you might be damaging trees in here that'll have premature death all along here. So this tree line could fall back a lot, okay? And that's something you have to think about. Roots are very fragile. They have a symbiotic relationship with the soils, and the small and the big ones get broken, kind of think of your lungs, that's a mess for them, and they don't make it. So there's a whole nice tree line here that if it collapses due to work up here, because you're being kind of thinking that this is the tree line, and you're not seeing the trunks, etc., then there could be more impacts due to these grades on that vegetation. Now, he can do work in this area, but the commission can also ask for mitigation. And I asked him if he would move, you know, up to here and one marker here, and maybe fade this one here, and he said no. He's gonna do what everybody else gets, he gets to 50. So that's what he wants. So you're kind of stuck with that. Maybe the grade changes shouldn't be allowed, and that will change the project. Because I'm not sure you can do the grade changes in that area. They could clear, but I'm not sure you can change the grades unless the commission allows it. I'm not certain of that one.
But the other thing to consider is that over an acre of that property is going to be maintained in perpetuity in its natural state, just because of the fact that you have additional 50-foot buffer there. You know, basically, they couldn't do anything in that southern triangle regardless, because the 50-foot no-touch goes right to the property.
Well, not quite. The 75 goes to here, so structure can get filled in here.
Right, I was just speaking of.
Yeah, I get you, but I want to make
speaking
sure.
of the other
commission
side,
does
correct, John? Out towards Pleasant Street?
this. And reflecting on the pictures and Mr. Commissioner O'Donnell's presence at the site, you know, you might ask his opinion. And Mike and I saw it, and it's pretty steep, you know? And it gives you some religion when you look at it from that perspective. You can also maybe condition that there'll never be a retaining wall. I did receive some information about some other things involving the river, and I don't know if you want to go into that or not, but if you want to, I am prepared to show that.
Is this a case of that you think there's any possibility of this being a
There is
perennial
vegetation that
stream?
looks like it's a aquatic species called riverweed, which is in a dormant stage, and then there's videos of the running water, and you've heard about the 1969 soil survey on this, and there's a map that shows you that this area has got a finger of connectivity to a conservation land, and it's a wildlife corridor also. Maybe not up here, but down where the water is, yes. So if the commission wants to see that, I'm prepared to share that.
What's the impact, what's the potential impact on the project?
Well, if he thought it was a river, then it would be 200-foot riverfront. And then he would be new, and then he would have to go to 10.58 and start to comply with that performance standard as well.
And as we went through the last hearing, I'm not sure if you were here, Commissioner Ring, but we went through per the definition in 10.58, it's an intermittent stream.
I remember that
I mean,
discussion.
it's, when you start talking about aquatic vegetation, it's predominantly aquatic vegetation versus terrestrial vegetation. So the presence of pondweed or duckweed or some other type of aquatic plant can be present in a stream, but if you have predominantly terrestrial vegetation, which this stream does basically within and on the bank sides of it, you know, that's another indicator that it's not a permanent stream, that it doesn't have that presence of standing water.
It's riverweed, and you have 3 species of plants. You have obligate must live in wetlands. You have fac wet 69 to 99% of the time, and then you have facultative 50% of the time. They can live out of it, but typically they obey that. So if you want to see that, that's the 3rd time I could show it to you.
I'm not sure if that will do us much good. I think the issue is, you know, we want to have a 50-foot no-touch zone, but the way that slope is situated, you know, if you clear right down to the 50, there's virtually no way you're not going to have damage or erosion, you know, downslope from that. You know, recognizing if we allow the structure to stay at 75, but to bring the conservation markers upgrade a little bit, the way Bill described before, to protect those trees right at the top of that slope there.
The species may be.
I think that's what we talked about last time, right, Bill?
Yeah, you're there, just to close the loop on it, just so that we have all the facts, you can make your decision. It's not called riverweed necessarily, it's pygmy weed, it's an obligate species, it's dominant in this area, and just, you know, brackish or salt, Lawrence lacustrine, riverine, yeah. So, yeah, that's what you have.
What do the other commissioners think on this one?
I worry about the cutting and back on the trees. So, trying to mitigate that would be helpful.
So to bring those markers up a little bit.
Yeah.
To preserve the trees that are in place, because basically if you go right down to that line, you're gonna kill the trees below it,
Potentially.
The root system will get damaged.
most likely.
I mean, with a slope like that, the root systems are gonna be down deeper as you go slope, right?
We hope.
Well, I mean, they typically don't grow this way. They're gonna grow down or they're gonna go down slope. So I think that the potential for that impact is probably less than you may initially think. I can bring that back to my client and talk to them about it. That being the case, that would significantly reduce the size of the rear lawn. You know, whether that's a deal breaker for them, I don't know, or, you know, it may be that the limit of the tree clearing comes back closer to the southern property line in the 50 and 75.
So when I was in Hingham, Cliff Prentice was a really respected conservation agent, and he said, you know, I won't tell you who, but a certain commissioner was on the commission back then. He's right, okay? The root system has a symbiotic relationship with the soils, and if you get too close, you'll start to foul them up. And they spread this way, and they have a taproot down, and that's pretty much how they work. So they're going to follow the earth no matter what's going on, and they're going to find their space. If they have a habit of being a couple inches off the ground, they're going to go up the hill and do that. And they're also going to do that downhill, and they're going to spread this way they would if it was flat. So they're exposed roots up there. They're going to get hammered, And I've gone to many sites where I said, don't touch that tree. And they've been clipped by equipment, and that's also a death sentence for trees, because it gives it like a pneumonia experience in wintertime. That area cannot protect itself, it freezes, and that part of the tree starts to become inert. And it progressively spreads, and the tree slowly dies. So nicking them or wrecking the roots are two big problems.
And there's a substantial number of trees right
And they're
along
big,
that
yeah.
proposed line with the markers, correct?
Yeah.
So what I can do is see if I can get another 5 feet from them. I mean, to go 55, I mean, I think going 10 feet is gonna pretty much bring them right to the back of the house, for the most part. But, you know,
Well,
let's
it would be
see.
25 feet. It's 25 feet from the markers to the house. I mean, the house is right on
Right, so it would
75.
leave 20 feet along.
Yeah.
Maybe you should show where the stumps are gonna be of the trees getting cut, and that would help out. Because you can look at it right here, right behind me, that tree's gone. That's because the 50's way down here on the other tree. This is 75, the 50's down there, here's your 100. So that tree's history. And that's not being shown on there, that cleared area, and that's a big tree.
How many big trees?
John?
Well, I mean, this is all new to me, and you know, as we were going
No
through
doubt.
this in the rain, I was asking Mike, I said, well, is it possible to mark the trees, to, you know?
Oh,
You have
yeah.
the stakes, which show the 25, 50, 100, but, you know, can't see exactly where the house ends and where the property line ends, and therefore where, you know, what trees would have to come down. I just thought,
That's a
seeing
great idea.
that tape around, yellow tape, orange tape, whatever, around trees that are gonna be removed, helped me visualize. I don't know if it matters. I guess my other question is, when do you think you're gonna have the variance to go forward?
I don't know. I don't know that he will get a variance.
So that was the other question I had, you know,
Yes.
to Mike, is, are we putting the cart in front of the horse here? I mean, if there is no variance and this house can't be built, then why, we're out here in the rain looking at,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If there is no variance, the house can still be built. It's just gonna be smaller in the front. So the portion that's outside the commission.
oh, that's right, I'm sorry, you did say that, okay, yep. So you're going forward, the back is always gonna be the same?
Correct.
So this 75 foot that we're looking at, whether it's a smaller house, doesn't matter? Okay, okay.
So once again, we've accepted the wetland line, well,
You didn't explore the other options, so that means you're focused on the wetland line that John did, which I had delineated, I had no issues with. I don't think Mike did either.
what other option are you talking about?
The river, and the river lead, you didn't want to get that, so
The last hearing you went on that, you know, you believed it probably was not a perennial
I'm an
stream.
absorber of information, Mr. Chairman, and I absorb the information, and then I try to present it in a way that's non-opinion oriented the best I can. And I think that the best decision here is like what happened at 202 Moraine. Don't make a decision on the riverine environment. Focus on the wetland line, get it right, and then get these grades right, and design a project that's got proper mitigation. You're getting closer with the trees and figuring that out. Once you see those impacts, those are impactful not only to the trees in the 50, but down gradient, and that's a secondary problem.
So does that mean, just to try to align it with our discussion, does that mean if we start to move the tree cutting closer to the house, that we will wind up by mitigating some of those impacts?
I think that's absolutely true. You know, by moving it up, we won't kill the tree. Right now, what I believe the problem is that, you know, if we allow work right up to the 50, we're probably gonna kill trees downgrade from that.
Yes.
So we wanna pull up a certain amount, and
I'm with you, I got your answer.
John has suggested 5 feet. Do we need more?
You might, and I would suggest that the logic the commission is using is cumulative impact. So if these trees in the 50, which you allow under the bylaws go, you have a tumble and domino effect down gradient, and that is your worry. So you have cumulative impacts, you're looking for mitigation, and you're not trying to burden the applicant, you're trying to get a project that's approvable.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
what you're trying to
we're
get to.
we're not asking you to change the location of the house.
No, because he
We're
keeps saying that, I
honoring-
think he's right, they'll shrink the front part to
Well,
make
that's not our issue.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying,
But if the house stays on that 75-foot line,
which you could do,
you
yeah.
know, that's giving him what we require from conservation. As far as the conservation markers, that's to keep from killing those trees downgrade from there.
Cumulative impacts too.
And we know, you know, years from now, they'll be back asking to cut some of those trees because they're too close to the house. But by that time, everything will be stabilized around it.
Or you can always say no on that too, on the tree thing.
I'm happy to go back and ask about that. As proposed, this complies with your bylaw. It doesn't disturb anything within the 50. What you're speaking of is hypothetical, down the road, what could possibly happen, right? And so right now, as proposed, we don't have any work within the 50. We're not touching any trees within the 50. The house is outside, all structures are outside the 75. So, you know, I just want you to kind of keep that in mind, and I'm happy to go back and talk to the applicant and see what we can do to pull that back a little bit, you know, to get, you know, better peace of mind, I guess, that those trees located along the 50-foot, you know, will be protected. You
I
know,
think we're also trying to balance the river issue and not chase that necessarily, and try to find some mitigation. That's probably, at least in my head, that's some of what I'm thinking about. The river issue is a question. How much do we all want to spend chasing that? Maybe you can address those issues.
Right, I mean, we've addressed the river issues.
Yeah.
I mean, that would go to DEP, and I am fully confident that it would be considered administrative, and I don't like to go there
Yeah,
at all.
it still
So-
costs,
so
it
let's-
still costs.
Yeah, so let's see what we can
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
to get everybody on the same page.
Or there could be a third
No.
party, because the commission can bring that in, you don't
Susan,
need
you
that
got
though.
something?
I was just gonna say that John's idea to, maybe we flag the trees, if you can actually go to the site and see the trees, maybe that would make everybody feel better.
Yeah, I mean,
It,
we can-
just
we
see
can
the ones that
mark-
we're talking
mark the
about that
trees,
could be
you know,
impacted.
I think predominantly along that 50-foot is the most important.
Well, yeah,
area, right?
exactly.
I mean, so you could see, and I could get a sense of what caliber trees.
Because we're saying
Right,
trees, trees
right.
could be 2, trees could be 22.
Right.
So like we're
Big,
talking,
yeah.
you know, I always
Yeah.
like data and facts, so, you know.
Yeah, and it may end up being, and I'd have to go back and take a look at it, that, you know, maybe there are some areas where there are more trees that we could potentially pull it back a little bit further. You know, in areas where there are less trees.
Right.
you
It's
know,
not
we
necessarily
can
a
go
straight
through
line.
that.
It-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And large trees are better, you know, to
Right.
preserve.
Okay, is that it from commissioners right now?
Yep.
I'd like to open it up to public comments. Mr. Finn?
Yeah, my name is William Finn, 96 Dog Lane. I'm a butter, and I'm going to remove myself from being a consultant to the commission for this discussion, and I'll become a butter. I've been interested in listening to the debate about whether you have a river issue or not. My intent is not to debate that issue. Whether it's an intermittent stream, a perennial stream, I don't think you can make that judgment particularly well during a drought. And I don't care what kind of calculations you do. We're in a severe drought. But I do have some information that I've given to Mr. Grafton that I would like to share with the commission, and it focuses on the area that we're trying to protect, which is the river valley, or the stream valley, that is below the slope that you're debating about whether or not vegetation should be cut or not cut. If you look at the first slide at the top.
I'm working on it, yeah, I'm trying to.
The map, 2668.
Yeah, I know, I gotta get this thing figured out, hang on a second here. This is painful. Alrighty. Gotta open See, this is what.
This is a map just to give you some orientation in relationship to this
it's open, it'll
area.
go. If you open it, it won't.
How it relates to the property. And
You're not gonna be able to do that. Just let me just guide me with the marker.
Okay.
See this?
what I'm trying to show you here,
This little area.
this is the location of Dog Lane. I live right here, on this parcel right here, it's about 2 acres. The stream that we're talking about begins over here, and comes down from Forge. This is Forge Lane, this is Pleasant Street. The stream is located in this stream valley here. This is Pleasant Street today. In 1954, this was Pleasant Street. Dog Lane is the old Pleasant Street. In 1954, they took property from, by eminent domain, they took property and realigned Pleasant Street to go down to meet Summer Street here. And they renamed this remaining portion of Pleasant Street Dog Lane. So when they realigned Pleasant Street, they filled this half of this stream valley. This stream emanates from up here. Now the calculations about whether or not this is a perennial stream or an intermittent stream, a lot of those calculations depend on the size of the watershed. This stream that we're going to be talking about, I have some visuals to show you in a minute, is not really fed by surface water. It's primarily fed by groundwater. And also groundwater that seeps into the drainage system that we have created from all this area on Pleasant Street, all the drainage that comes down from Pleasant Street, and a lot of the drainage that comes down from Deer Hill goes into pipes that ultimately are culverts that ultimately feed this stream. And what happens is when the groundwater table is up at its normal level, it infiltrates into this drainage system and it continuously flows down into this stream. And that's where the flow really for this stream comes from groundwater, not so much from surface water and rainfall and watershed. But that's the orientation that we're going to be talking about. The stream, beginning of the stream emanates up in this area. Cuts under Pleasant Street through a culvert that I'll show you in a minute, and it goes down on this side of the stream valley. And Bill, could you go to the next slide?
Yeah, I will do my best because this is a struggle right now, just so we're on the same page, Alexa. All right, so he wants a video. We don't have any videos.
It's
2024, I believe. I don't see that one. 2124, that's the one you want. Okay, hopefully I can get that one to work. All right, so what I want to share.
That's a video.
Yeah, bear with it. I struggle with this. All right, so where in the heck is it? Any idea why I'm in trouble? New share, how about that? Share. Okay, hopefully it's not working. New share.
Bill, in case we have trouble getting this up,
Yeah.
where
Here you
are
go,
we
here.
headed with
Just gonna
this?
quickly look at it because I can't be sure.
Okay, that's the culvert under Pleasant Street, and it's a 3x4 culvert under the granite culvert, and that's the stream coming down through the culvert on June 5th. That going under Pleasant Street, now it's turning the other way up toward the headwaters, if you will, of the stream. So the stream, where I told you it emanates up here, this whole area is fed by drainage pipes on Pleasant Street, Deer Hill, the whole area drains into this stream system that goes down that stream valley. So this stream is running now going under Pleasant Street through this culvert. And I'd like you to focus in this particular area. Just keep this area here in mind because I want to show you what's under that water.
Can we skip the other videos, Bill? We don't really have time, and maybe do one
Well, the
picture.
next video I think is important because it shows the other side of Pleasant Street.
Looks like.
This is the downstream.
Go that way and you get it.
This is going upstream and down across Pleasant Street after the stream comes under Pleasant Street. This is the stream valley. You can see that's the whole stream valley up there toward my property. This is the stream coming downstream toward Summer Street. This is the stream on the same day, June 5th. And you can see there's a fair amount of volume. That's about 1.5 feet deep. Because I had my waders on when I took this, so I measured it. That's the stream that we're trying to protect, but the stream valley is still up in here. You can see all of the markers from the folks that did the wetlands delineation and the stream bank. So that's the stream that we're trying to protect. That's it going down toward Pleasant Street. The reason that the stream is important is not so much whether it's perennial or annual. It's one of the 3 sources of water for wildlife. If you can go to that, back to that map, Bill.
I can't, because we're gonna have to go linear. Just.
Okay, well.
I'm surprised we're doing
so
this much.
This is back up above this is up above the culvert under Pleasant Street. This is a pool right here. And the next slide, which is a picture, will show you some of the growth of vegetation that's under the water. You can't see it right now. But it just came off the species of special concern, natural heritage list of species of special concern, but it is still considered a foundational species for freshwater streams. And when it's observed, you're supposed to report it to DEP, Natural Heritage, because they want to keep track of it. So an analogy would be it's very similar to the same kind of foundational material that spartina grasses provide in salt water. And that's coming up on this next slide. That's underneath that pool that I just showed you. That's when this pool was, that's like 5 days after, that's like the 15th of June. The water's all gone because the groundwater table's down so low. That was the water you saw there was the result of a surface water storm and drainage going into that stream. That's what's underneath that stream. And that's a species of, like I say, it just came off the species of special concern list, but it's still supposed to be reported to Natural Heritage when you see it. This is 5 days after that, or 10 days after that. You can see this weed is starting to deteriorate, but it's still alive, which means it's got regular contact with water somehow, or else it would be dead. And the next slide will show it to you. This is like about a week ago, I took this slide. You can see it's pretty much deteriorated, but it's still alive and still there, like in here, which means it does see water on a pretty regular basis to keep it alive. So it may not be a perennial stream, but I certainly wouldn't necessarily make that judgment during a drought. So I would just ask you not to make that judgment. Just call it a stream. Don't say agree to it. It's perennial. The last thing I would show you is this map again. This little connection right here goes right across Dog Lane to my property. I'm a wildlife biologist by training, education. I have my property landscaped so these animals that come down off of this area to get to that water supply There are 3 water supplies that these animals on this whole conservation area get to. Furnace Brook, to get to Furnace Brook, they have to cross 3A. 3A is right here. Furnace Brook is one water supply. Up here, through Tree Street, there is another pond which feeds cranberry bogs, and that's another water supply for the animals. And the other one is this stream that we're talking about. I have animals that come down through my yard every day to go to that stream to get water. So there are 3 out of this whole area. There are only 3 places where those animals can go to get water. When they come down this, they only have to make 1 street crossing. And it's not a very busy street. So it's a very important water supply for wildlife in that whole Carolina Hill area. That's why it's important to preserve it. What I'm asking this commission to consider is minimize as much as you can vegetation removal from that steep slope so that we don't have erosion coming down and losing that slope and have that slope start to erode away down into that stream valley. It's very important to protect all the vegetation you can on that slope. And I'd be interested through you, Mr. Chairman, to find out what John means when he says that the property is going to, the 1 acre is going to be protected in perpetuity. How is that going to occur? What is the protection that we're going to guarantee that that's going to be protected in perpetuity? Is the commission going to require that in writing as part of your order of conditions?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, very eloquent explanation, but it's basically, we go back to, we're trying to protect that slope.
That's right.
That's the key thing.
Absolutely correct.
And, John, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, when I said that property will basically be protected, it is with respect to the commission's buffers and the no-touch buffers. The applicant is not proposing to put any type of deed restriction or conservation restriction on the property. By nature of the commission's bylaw, it basically renders the remainder of that property unbuildable with your no disturbance buffers, even after, should a house be built there, even after that fact, because, we wouldn't revert back to that 25-foot, the 50-foot no disturb and the 75-foot no structure would remain.
Well, that clarifies the issue because it's not then protected in perpetuity by any legal mechanism other than compliance with the bylaw.
So Bert, you could special condition it, Bert, and you could actually get what you want through a special condition that's in perpetuity. Don't have to get a separate deed, and then that's the way it goes. Like, there's no activity downgrading the 50
Well,
ever.
the conservation markers achieve that also,
I agree,
correct?
and that's why I tried to work with Dana to move this up, because I could see this coming, but he was very certain he didn't want to do it at the time. Maybe John could change his mind.
Okay, are there any other public comments?
Just had a question
Sir?
about the plan.
Your name and address, please?
Roberts, 10 Dog Lane.
Yeah.
I understand where the back of the house is going to be at the 75-foot mark, and I see that there are those contours there, which I think are probably a lot steeper than are indicated on this line, but I'm just curious what's going to happen to the backyard. Is it a finished backyard, or is it patio? Because you say there's going to be a walkout basement, so I'm just kind of curious.
It would be a walkout to a lawn.
Okay.
But what's shown on the plan is what would be there for structures. There's no decking or patios or anything proposed right now.
We have language in the special conditions that says anything that's pervious or impervious that changes beyond the plan has to come back to the commission for review. So does that happen and doesn't come back to the commission? It does, but when we catch up with them, then we either permit it or have it removed or, get mitigation.
I continue to hear questions about these contours. Are we satisfied they're correct now?
Well, it's the third one, so.
Well, what the hell
I
does
know,
that
but
mean?
I'm not a decision maker. I'm a downward decision, I'm an information gatherer.
Or there's a woman with her hand up.
I showed you the picture.
Oh, I'm sorry. Another comment?
My name is Wendy Moriarty, I'm 41 Dog Lane, so I'm a kitty corner of butter, so to speak. I remember we bought our house in '99, and at one point, Dog Lane was considered a scenic drive because of the azaleas that came up from the Reganon property, which is your property. And it was all the way around, and I would assume that that would have something to do with helping the vegetation, and a lot of those azaleas are gone. And I don't know if that's made any impact on any of these, you know, the conservation part of it, but it just concerned that another house is gonna take away as opposed to add.
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, we have to really work this from the standpoint of our bylaws, but there's also gonna be ZBA hearings about this, you know, with the location of the house, and there's a few things that are gonna have to be worked out there. But we're back to this slope here. I think we need to continue, and maybe the idea of going out and see which trees we can preserve. And as Susan and John spoke about, you know, it may not be a exact straight line. It may, you know, zig and zag a little bit to protect what we can. And, you know, because at this point, we are saying we're okay with that 75 foot for the structure, and I think that's, you know, this whole thing is very tight.
If we could continue to October 5th, I can get out there this weekend and get the trees marked, and then I'll talk to the applicant, you know, tomorrow and try to figure out, you know, the plan back for modifying the conservation markers.
When there's another visit, Bill, I'd like to know about it.
Yeah,
Same here.
John, I think you should initiate it, you know, because I'll get Liz to help you initiate it, because I've been to the site twice, and I will go a third time to help Commissioner to see it, if they need to see it. And maybe a group visit would help out. I mean, it's come a long way, I gotta give him that, but there's still a couple concerns, because it's moved 3 times already.
So I guess, do we have to, sorry?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
My name's Shannon Fullerton. I'm at 36 Dog Lane, so direct abutter. I just had a question. Do you know who actually placed those markers? Is that an independent person, or is this the applicant?
As far as the wetland flags, or?
You're talking about those stakes, or?
175.
That seems, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was the applicant.
Okay, so can I just ask that that be verified somehow?
We can pull tape from the wetland line or
Yeah. I mean,
when we're out there.
we've had a revised site plan that has Pat Brennan's stamp, but it's the same stamp, you know, from both you know, so has Pat reviewed it again?
Yes, yeah, he worked with Dana on the revised site plan. But,
Hey,
you know, if we're all in the field, we can take a look at fixed points, and
Yeah.
I have a 200-foot tape, we can cross-reference some of the site plan.
Yeah, but it'd be better if maybe Dana just gave a letter, because your tape is gonna be at an angle, and as you said, it's hard to get it level. So maybe the onus is on the applicant. If he did that work, then he should put it in writing. And that solves that, and that's the confirmation, right?
We can do that as well.
So I'd like to make a motion to continue until, when was it you wanted, John?
The 5th.
Let's go with October 5th, and if we need to continue past that.
Okay, October 5th. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second is Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, that's the last hearing, but I believe the new one that hasn't been read in yet, Bill, we had a continuation for 12 Gilbert Street.
Correct, 12 Gilbert
I need to
also.
read that in, right?
You need to read that in, and then you should, and I'm sorry, I think I might have thrown you a curveball on that one. That needs to be read into the record, and that was a great pickup on your part, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so in compliance with the regulations, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by Marshfield Conservation Commission on September 21st to consider the notice of intent filed by Domingos Viega, 12 Gilbert Street, Marshfield, for the reconstruction of existing stone revetment. So we've already voted to continue this hearing. Shall we vote again?
Yes.
Motion to continue?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And do we know when they wanted to continue till, Bill?
These guys wanted to continue, it's on, that stuff is actually right. It's the 5th.
Okay. All right, that concludes the hearings. On to the COCs.
Yes. The first one, Mr. Chairman, 71 Constellation Road, I think it needs additional time.
All right, so we'll table that one?
Correct, special conditions or issues, and it affects that one in 2300. You could make two separate motions to get that continued, or just take them linear, however you want.
I'd like to make a motion to table the COC for 71 Constellation Road. Get a second?
42, 1500,
Second?
Do we have to table it or continue it?
continue it,
Oh, okay, there's two of them there.
correct.
All right,
So you're gonna continue it to October 5?
yep.
The motion, you need the vote? You gotta ask for the vote, Bert.
All right, so motion to continue. Well, these are the same COCs, or what are
You
they?
could just say, yeah, but here's the deal.
Motion to continue 71 Constellation Road until October 5th.
SC 42, 1500.
Yeah, 1500 and 2300.
Correct.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Second is Susan, all in favor?
All right, so that's gonna be one motion to cover two.
Okay, now Walker,
Walker is.
the notice of intent, will that
So I would
allow the
continue-
COC to close out? Or
Yeah, they have to have that come back, and they need to give the plan,
Recorded.
and they need the 2550, all the stuff, and then after that's done, and when that's given to the commission staff, then you could pursue the 1743.
Okay, so a motion to continue 459 Highland Street. I get a second?
Second?
Second is Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Next one is 13 South Street. Are we prepared to discuss that?
Yeah, I think Mr. Baird, Attorney Baird's here. There's been a lot of emails, Mr. Chairman, and commissioners, and town council has weighed in again, and I'm not gonna belabor some of the points, but basically, the commission, he had stated was willing to be generous and allow a small area around the columns to stay. That was originally mentioned when I was at a meeting with him, the town engineer and the assistant town engineer about a different topic, and it came up because I needed to clear it for the commission. So he stuck with that, and the other attorney representing the seller made some comments, and Bob summarily responded, and Attorney Baird, I think it was in alignment with the town council.
So I did want to clarify, so the request for the COC in general, the last time we spoke, it was suggested that Chair Hannafin, myself, and Attorney Galvin connect to discuss a potential plan for drainage to be installed. And all parties are willing to do that. I couldn't get a plan set because it turns out that idea or concept was pretty complicated. in terms of installing drainage and a floor in this area, because we will be looking at soil tests and perhaps, installing pipes to sort of move the water elsewhere. Not a heck of a lot of places to move that water. So I believe that as an applicant, we are going to be looking at retaining the 13-foot perimeter around the basement while having the remainder of the floor removed and filled in with gravel. That's going to be our next focus. So my concern is, with respect to this commission's process, timing of when that plan can be produced. It's been difficult to get engineers to give us a time frame of when we can see, when I can have a plan to propose. The engineer that I spoke to has basically indicated they're about 8 weeks out.
Yeah, 8 to 12, actually.
So when I spoke to him specifically, he said, don't get a 2-week extension. And I said, well, this has gone on for a long time. So I don't want to set yet another date and then not meet it. So that's sort of why I'm here.
But the town council had said to me separately that the performance standards are what dominates, and also the special condition. And the commission, he said, has basically broadly discussed this, and that you can only have a small area around the columns. That's kind of it.
Well, no, the commission can decide to allow a perimeter. He also said they could decide to allow drainage, but like I said, it doesn't make sense to go that way. It is their decision.
He didn't really say, it wasn't encouraging those, I don't think. I don't know what you had in mind, the perimeter. Mr. Fournier talked about a 3-foot, not a 13-foot.
Oh, I'm so sorry, 3 foot. I don't know why I had 13 foot in my head, yes.
So
A 3 foot.
I heard that, and I thought, okay, I can bring that to the commission, and maybe that's palatable, because the majority would be opened, and,
I'm so sorry, a 3 foot, yes,
Yeah.
to clarify.
So that's something to think about, so it just gets done. But the idea of putting in small drainage holes, it's just gonna undermine the whole thing and create a disaster. And it's gonna be worse than not doing anything. And other people have mentioned that also.
That's why we're
They've
not
gotten
doing it.
structural engineers to actually make those comments to them verbally, so I don't
Yeah.
think you're interested in that anymore.
Correct, yeah.
So he's looking at columns protection maybe, or this perimeter thing.
So, it's been a long night. You shared that information with us. We don't really need to, it's not a continuation. It's,
Yeah, it's a continuation, because
Well-
that's all we have. I mean, we've always used continuations on COCs, table continue,
right.
Yeah, so we could table it until such time as they.
Exactly.
Okay.
We don't have to name a date certain.
Okay. Thank you.
Why don't you just pick the 2nd December, and I don't have that in front of me right now. I can figure it out right now, because it sounds like you're gonna need that much time.
And if we have something available before that,
No, because you pick it now in November, or you pick it in December, because you can't go December and want to move it back up. All right, so.
Can't
it
you
would be
move can't you bring a
21st.
COC, Bill, can't you bring a COC forward whenever you want, whenever you have
I'm trying to
completed
help
your
you get a
work?
date specific, so we don't get into that trouble, because somebody will come back and say, did you move that to a date
Oh.
certain? I don't know, like, some people were here today about the harbor master stuff, for example.
I think it's a little different situation.
December 21 or 7 would be your best 2 options that have already been approved by the commission, or the 2nd of November or the 16th of November. Pick a date.
I guess let's say the first week in December. Well, but then are we running into the season of it's too cold to get it done? No, if we're cutting out the floor, if the floor is.
You could do that whenever.
I'd like to
Yeah,
make a motion to table 13 South Street.
Okay.
Do I get a second? Susan, second?
To the
All in
7th
favor?
of December,
Aye.
so we have,
Aye.
okay. So I'll take this off and kill this? Is that what's happening?
Okay.
So Bert, I take this off here permanently, then?
Yeah,
Table for eternity? Okay, got it.
Once we have something.
Once you have a solution.
yeah, I mean, they're gonna come back, because they have to settle this between the buyer and the seller.
Supposed to settle things in 21 days on these, just so you know.
Thank you.
All right, next one up is Paris Realty Trust.
That's just a simple 6-month extension if you just do that.
So I'd like to make a motion to grant an extension to Paris Realty Trust, John Sherman Estates, for 6 months. Do I get a second?
Second.
That's Katie.
All in favor? Aye. 2300, we already did. 2773, Escobar.
Yeah, I'd say table to a specific date, please, October 5, 2022.
Okay, motion to table
October 5, 2022.
1185 Ferry Street to October 5th. Do I get a second?
Second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cherry Street's an approval. Thank God. I said, thank God, it's approval.
So everything's good with
Yeah,
that?
thank God is what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve 2785 78 Cherry Street. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second is Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Another one, thank God, too.
And next one, 2343 211 Spring Street. That's good.
Yeah, he's good.
Motion to
With
approve.
ongoing conditions, because he's got markers.
Do you want to discuss it?
Yeah, okay, so I'll read it in the record. There'll be ongoing conditions as follows. The 8 permanent conservation markers described in red and white Marshfield wetland resource no disturbance on 4x4 rot-resistant pressure-treated cedar equivalent post depicted on the approved as-built plan September 12, 2022, prepared by Webby Engineering Associates, Inc., signed stamped by Joseph Webby Jr., RPLS, are to remain posted in the field 30-40 inches above ground surface in perpetuity. Damaged or decayed conservation posts and markers shall be replaced. Any activity such as mowing, fill, or vegetative management is prohibited beyond the conservation marker. This condition remains in perpetuity.
Okay, do I get a second?
Second.
Yep.
Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Great, all right.
I think that completes our agenda. Is that correct, Bill?
That does not. You have got Mr. Holmesy here for an enforcement, and then you're gonna table Mr. Tobin to, I don't know, different date.
Okay, where are we at with Holmesley?
Mr. Holmesy, you're here, please? Could you fill us in a
Yes,
little?
I'm here, Bill. Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so we received a site plan from Mr. Holmesy's consultants, and I believe that was submitted to the commission. I hope it was. It had the symbols that you requested. They made a slight mistake with Mrs. Donahue's property. They asked me if they needed to submit another plan. I said, just submit a field memo from Brad Holmes or equivalent when that happens to simplify this, because we're gonna go on and get another site plan. I don't think so. And I can't remember, it was a Tupelo or something like that instead of an Eastern Red Cedar, but it was minor, and Brad or equivalent can handle that in the field with a memo.
Correct.
So that's pretty much what we did last time, right? So what are we doing now?
Well, I vote to approve the revised restoration plan dated 8/16, this is probably 9/16/2022. That includes the restoration plan symbols and locations with the implementation to begin during the fall 2022 planning season.
Make a motion to approve as described by Bill. I get a second?
Second.
Second, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you're approved, Mr. Holmesy, to get going on that, and then correct that item in the field with Brad Holmes or equivalent, and you'll be submitting regular monitoring reports as per the request, the order of the commission's requirements.
Correct. I agree. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience and everything. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill, for the help. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Who is the second on this?
I think it's Joe.
Thank you, Jim. And then you got a table, and I said 60 days, and because this is an encroachment and this guy is asking for town council's opinion on whether or not he has rights that have been taken from him. That's basically what he's saying. I would suggest that this be either November 2 or November 16th, so we have a date certain. He wants more time to think it through. So November 16th, maybe?
Okay, so I make a motion to table 45 Winslow Street enforcement order until November 16th. Ken seconded. All in favor?
We're all in favor.
We're
Aye.
ready.
He wanted a second.
We want you second, so we can.
And with that, I make a motion to adjourn.
Get a second.
I gotta go use the bathroom.
So wait, so
Seconded, voted.
Joe
Okay.
did the second and then voted?
Aye, unanimous.
All right, unanimous. One of the longer meetings, 10:04.